Was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to the Conservative Party conference. This is Good Afternoon Britain with me, Tom Harwood, and of course Nana Akua, who is in London for us. We've got an enormous show coming up today with so much to cover, not just here in Manchester at the Conservative Party conference, but across the country with the latest news and indeed views. You know, you can always get involved. www.gbnews.com/yoursay in order to get stuck into all of our conversations throughout the programme. But here in Manchester, the Conservatives are looking to the economy today. They are promising a huge load of spending reductions. They call them savings, but this, of course, is in the face of a dire economic predicament in the United Kingdom. The highest inflation in the G7, the highest borrowing costs in the G7, and indeed growth that is being revised downwards time and time again. We're expecting a budget from the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, next month. Could she take any of the suggestions from this party conference to try and save some money and plug that £30 to £50 billion black hole that we're all expecting painful tax rises to try to plug when that budget comes along? The Conservative Party today is trying to set out a different path. It's trying to say that spending reductions are the way forward rather than tax rises. But where will those spending reductions come from? Well, the Shadow Chancellor, I should say, Sir Mel Stride, has been putting forward suggestions today. He says that social housing should only be for British citizens, getting rid of the 10% or so of social houses that currently go on foreign nationals. He also says that there should be huge savings across the civil service, sacking, in effect, over 120,000 civil servants to take the civil service back to 2016 levels. Further savings could be found in the foreign aid budget, so say the Conservatives. They say that billions potentially could be saved there, although of course the current government has already raided that budget to increase military spending, so how much more could really be found? And then of course there's disability benefits, which the Conservatives want to pare back for mental health. But much more to come from Manchester here with me. But in the meantime, let's go over to London with Nana Akua.
Thank you, Tom Harwood. Good afternoon, Britain. It is 12 o'clock on GB News, Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. And of course, Tom is live from the Conservative Party conference in Manchester. Coming up on today's show, the Conservatives pledge to slash billions in welfare spending, look to use their conferences to paint themselves as the fiscally responsible party. But will this be enough to boost their tanking poll numbers? Donald Trump is urging Hamas and Israel to move fast and agree a peace deal as his hopes rise and the remaining Israeli hostages could be released in a matter of days. And Gary Neville sparks fury by tearing down a Union flag from one of his Manchester building sites as he urges people to rethink what patriotism is.
The division that's being created is absolutely disgusting. Mainly created by angry, middle-aged white men who know exactly what they're doing.
What a hypocrite. It's been announced that Nottingham's attack victim Grace O'Malley Kumar will be posthumously awarded the George Medal for her astonishing courage in giving her life to try and protect her friend Barnaby Webber. And former England rugby captain and World Cup winner Lewis Moody reveals he's sadly being diagnosed with motor neurone disease.
I don't want to get stuck in the negativity or the doom and gloom, and I want to stay positive. I want to, stay in the moment.
Tired because not apart from doing the housework and doing a job, we made love all night, and therefore I staggered to work in the morning absolutely exhausted, and nobody had ever said that in a newspaper before.
Really tragic news. We'll be reacting to the news that the much-loved author Dame Jilly Cooper has sadly died at the age of 88. Very sad news about Jilly Cooper, I must say. When I was at boarding school, I used to read all of her books. I read Polo, Rivals, all of them. So very, very sad indeed. Send us your thoughts as well. Maybe your favourite Jilly Cooper book if you read them back in the day. gbnews.com/your say. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Nana, thank you, and a very good afternoon to you. The top story just after midday, the Conservatives promising a £5,000 boost for first-time buyers, calling it a first job bonus to help young people onto the property ladder. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride unveiled the plan earlier at the party's conference in Manchester, saying it will be funded by £47 billion in cuts. Welfare, the civil service and foreign aid are all in the firing line as the Tories try to prove they're tougher on spending than Labour. Well, it comes just a year after Kemi Badenoch took over as Tory leader and weeks before Labour's next budget, where tax rises haven't yet been ruled out. Let's take a listen to what Mel Stride had to say a short time ago.
No more pretending we can keep spending money we simply do not have. It falls to us, as today's Conservatives, to do the responsible thing. That's the right thing for our country. And it's also the right thing for the next generation. So to younger people, I say, we will get debt off your back. We can and we will.
Well, that comes as a major shake-up to the home buying system could make moving house cheaper, faster and far less stressful. The government says its proposals could shave a month off the process and save buyers around £700 on average. Plans include forcing sellers and agents to provide more upfront information and introducing binding contracts earlier to stop chains collapsing. The Housing Secretary, Steve Reed, says it's about turning a simple dream into a simple reality, with a full roadmap expected in the new year. Well, turning to news in France, where the system has been plunged into fresh political turmoil after the Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, quit less than a day after unveiling his new cabinet. He said conditions were not fulfilled for him to continue, blaming gridlock in Parliament. The shock move comes just 26 days after he took office, becoming fifth Prime Minister of France in under 2 years. It leaves President Emmanuel Macron facing mounting pressure to call early elections or risk another short-lived government. Stocks in Paris have fallen sharply since that announcement. Donald Trump says peace talks between Israel and Hamas in Egypt have been very successful, urging negotiators there to move fast to avoid massive bloodshed. Hamas has agreed to parts of a 20-point US plan, including freeing hostages, but rejected calls to disarm. Meanwhile, Israeli airstrikes have continued overnight, despite the US president calling for an immediate halt. At least 65 more people killed there in the past 24 hours. Both sides are sending top delegations to Cairo for what could be the most crucial negotiations since the war began nearly 2 years ago. Donald Trump says the first phase of the deal could be completed this week. Jaguar Land Rover is restarting production this week after a major cyber attack forced the car maker to shut down its UK factories for more than a month. The first site to reopen will be JLR's engine plant in Wolverhampton, with other sites in Solihull and Halewood to follow in the coming weeks. The hack is thought to have cost the company around £50 million a week. The government has pledged a £1.5 billion loan guarantee to help suppliers hit by the shutdown. JLR says its recovery programme is now firmly underway. The latest Gallantry Awards, which honour extraordinary acts of bravery, have recognised 20 people, including Nottingham student Grace O'Malley-Kumar for her exceptional courage in the face of extreme danger. The 19-year-old medical student was killed in 2023 while trying to protect her friend Barnaby Webber during the Nottingham attacks. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer says her legacy will live on as a powerful example of heroism. Other recipients include 2 police officers who stopped a man from falling from a bridge. Grace's family will be holding a press conference shortly to receive the medal in her honour, and we will take you live to those statements later this hour. Former England captain Lewis Moody has revealed he's been diagnosed with motor neurone disease, the same condition that claimed the lives of rugby greats Dodie Weir and Rob Burrow. The 47-year-old World Cup winner says he only learned of his diagnosis 2 weeks ago after noticing weakness in his shoulder during training. Speaking alongside his wife, he said telling his teenage sons was the hardest thing he's ever had to do.
Having to tell the boys, I mean, you know, 2 brilliant boys, and that was pretty heartbreaking, wasn't it? But and I didn't like the boys not knowing that we were having a tough time because they'd want to support us. So as soon as we could, we wanted to tell them.
And tributes are being shared across the literary world today for the much-loved author Dame Jilly Cooper, who has sadly died at the age of 88. Her children say her death came as a complete shock after a fall on Sunday morning, describing her as the shining light in all of our lives. Her agent Felicity Blunt called her unbeatable in her ability to write stories that added to the sum of human happiness. That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you shortly. Now, though, let's get back to Nana.
Thank you, Sam. 9 minutes after 12 o'clock. And it's day 2 of the Conservative Party conference in Manchester. And the Shadow Chancellor has delivered his speech this morning, addressing party members. Mel Stride urged the Conservatives to hold their nerve in the face of stagnant poll numbers. He also pledged that a future Conservative government would scrap business rates for shops and pubs on high streets. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Under Labour, many have seen their business rates double. We need to get business rates down. In fact, we need to go further, much, much further. So today, I can announce that as a direct result of getting public spending under control, a future Conservative government will completely abolish business rates for shops and pubs on our high streets. End of!
A very impassioned speech, but some will ask why didn't they do some of that when they were in power? Well, let's cross live now to the conference as GBNews' Deputy Political Editor Tom Harwood and GBNews Political Correspondent Olivia Utley join me. Tom, good morning, or afternoon even.
Good afternoon. Yes, I have to say it's a bit of a busier feel to the Conservative Party conference today than the sort of ghost town that we saw yesterday. There are actually people milling around here, although I do understand a few fewer than last year. But with me, of course, is Olivia Utley, our political correspondent, and you've been sniffing around this conference so far. They're trying to focus on the economy today, but I suppose the biggest problem they have is this sort of search for relevance.
Well, absolutely. It seems as though what the Tories are trying to do is carve out some sort of niche for themselves as the kind of party of economic sense, the party of fiscal conservatism. They say, Kemi Badenoch has said over and over again in this conference, that the problem with reform is that they are actually left-wing on economics. Now, that's not something that we hear very often, reform, left-wing, Nigel Farage, left-wing, but actually she does have a point. When you look at some of the reform policies, for example, scrapping the 2-child benefit cap, that could be argued to be quite a high spending policy. What Kemi Badenoch is trying to do is sort of re-centre the Conservative Party as the party of economic sense. So we've heard today from Mel Stride there are going to be slashes in public spending, and I think what we can expect to hear over the next few days is ways in which the state can grow. So one example was Mel Stride there talking about cutting business rates. That's a way to get the economy moving again. The problem, I think, for the Conservatives is it all feels like a little bit too little, too late. The Conservatives were in power for 14 years. They did not slash business rates. Why are they only talking about doing it now? The other issue is that polling suggests that although there might be quite a lot of sense in a party which stands for economic, right-wingers or liberal economic tradition, there isn't much of an appetite for it in the country. When people are polled about things like the two-child benefit limit, for example, they want to reverse it. They want people to have more benefits. People want to have more. So the Conservatives are trying to sell a really difficult message today. It's essentially the same message that was being sold during the coalition times, the message that Cameron and Osborne were trying to get across. We can't keep spending. The state has got too big. It's a very classic form of conservatism. And in the long term, it is probably the most sensible place for the Conservatives to be moving into, because there is a bit of a niche there between the Lib Dems, Labour and Reform. But as I say, there doesn't seem to be that much of an appetite for it.
I wonder, will it feel more relevant? Everything the Shadow Chancellor has said today, everything this party is saying today, will it feel more relevant in a month and a half's time when Rachel Reeves stands up there at the dispatch box in the House of Commons and does what she promised she wouldn't do, which is another large tax-raising budget? Because here we have the Conservative Party saying, look, here are £47 billion worth of spending reductions you could make, and instead, Chancellor, you're choosing to raise taxes.
Well, that's exactly what the Conservative Party is hoping, that by the time the Chancellor stands up in a month and a half time, then the Reform Party will be sort of scrabbling around looking for ways to fight back. But actually, all that Reform will really be saying, this is what the Conservatives are hoping, we don't like this. What the Conservatives are trying to do today is set up an actually alternative agenda. They're trying to say, look, you're about to have your taxes raised. This is the way we would try and make that money back. This is the way we would try and grow the economy. So they are looking at a long-term plan, and I think that's a phrase we're going to hear a lot over the next few days. But the problem is it's all a little bit late, not only in terms of they didn't really do much of this while they were in power for the last 14 years, but also Kemi Badenoch has now been a leader of the opposition for over a year, and we haven't really heard any policy yet. This conference seems to be reversing on that. We are expecting some sort of policy blitz, but the problem for the Tories is that quite a lot of their voters have already leaked away. And I think the other issue is that, yes, of course, reform is the big threat, and we're hearing a lot from the Conservatives about what they plan to do about immigration, but also the Lib Dems a bit of a threat on their other side. And I think particularly some of this economic conservatism is an absolute anathema to some of perhaps Tory Lib Dem swaying voters. So it could be that, yes, they might get a few reform-type voters back during this conference, but some might leak away to the Lib Dems. So give with one hand, take away with the other.
It's strange, because in a world where there are only two political parties, the opposition can go away and have its sort of esoteric thinking session where it doesn't talk and doesn't have any policy for 12 months, and it sort of does the policy reviews. Traditionally, we've seen parties do that. I mean, frankly, Keir Starmer, when he became leader of the Labour Party, had a torrid first year where he went away and sort of had no policy until perhaps even the last year that he was in opposition. But I suppose we're living in a very different world now, where people are looking to alternatives much faster, where we don't live in a world of two-party politics anymore. Do you think perhaps this go and sort of sit and think about it approach from Kemi Badenoch, this we'll come back to you in a year approach when it comes to policy, only being detailed with policy at this moment, now more than a year in of being Conservative Party leader, has it all left it far too late?
Well, I think this is exactly the issue. I think in the days after the election, I spoke to quite a lot of Conservative MPs and former Conservative MPs who said that it was not the time to come up with policy ideas. They all wanted to go away and sort of lick their wounds, have a think, talk to members of the public, talk to voters, etc. And they were talking at that stage about coming up with policy proposals in 2027. I mean, they have decided a year in that actually, as you say, that model does not work for these days. Partly, of course, because it's not a two-party system anymore. You have the Lib Dems and Reform both hot on the Conservative heels. They're getting lots of airtime, they're getting lots of attention. But also because of the state of the age. I mean, people are looking at their policy, they're looking at their news, they're looking all the time. 24-hour news channels like GBNews exist. There is a lot of airtime to be used up. And if the Conservatives aren't there using up that airtime, not talking about what they want to do, what they plan to do, well, someone else will. Reform and the Lib Dems will. And I found it really really interesting in the last sort of year or so. Well, I was off for 8 months on maternity leave, so I saw a very stark contrast. Just after the election, you saw Conservative MPs saying, we don't want to talk about policy yet. We want to think. We want to have our time to ourselves, sort of hunkering down. When I came back from mat leave, there were just so many Conservative MPs saying, look, come on, Kemi Badenoch, hurry up. It's time to do something. And we are now seeing that. We are seeing the Conservatives talking about leaving the ECHR and talking about these massive cuts that they would make to public spending. And as you say, there are more people here today. Perhaps the Conservatives are getting a bit of getting their ear in a little bit. Kemi Badenoch is becoming more popular, but it's all a bit slow for these quick, hurried times. People are listening to reform. People are listening to the Lib Dems. Are they listening to Conservatives? Maybe they're just beginning to. And I suppose you could say that's good enough. It's still 3.5 years till an election.
I suppose there are so many unknowns. I mean, politics has changed so much over the course of the last 12 months. I think if you and I were sitting here at Conservative Party conference 12 months ago, the people that we were speaking to at that point in time were thinking that they were going to be back in government. There were some polls that put Conservative Party in first place, but then you had the rise of reform. I mean, we've had 3 different parties in first place in the polls over the course of the last 12 months. It's been the most extraordinary time. But Olivia, thanks indeed for breaking down all of what we've heard there. There is so much more to discuss and digest. But for now, back to you, Nana.
Thank you very much, Tom. So we'll be at the conference all day. Stay with us. We'll bring you all the updates back here. A student who was stabbed to death in Nottingham attacks whilst trying to protect her friend has been posthumously awarded the George Medal for her exceptional courage in the face of extreme danger. Grace O'Malley Kumar was killed when she intervened and sought to try to save Barnaby Webber after he was attacked whilst they walked home from a night out in 2023. Grace's brother, James O'Malley Kumar, has been speaking at a press conference as Grace's family received the medal in her honour.
So I'm determined Grace's life is not defined by the violence that took her, but by the fact she will always represent a symbol of heroism, compassion and the very best of humanity. June 13, 2023. Mum just picked me up after finishing my chemistry GCSE paper 2. There I was, whining about the fact I found it hard paper. Little did I know, within moments, my world was about to be fractured forever. Now on the way home, Mum had asked me if I'd seen the news. Unsurprisingly, being in an exam, I hadn't. She then told me there had been attacks in Nottingham, where a young man and young woman were killed together walking home from a night out. As upsetting as it was, I stupidly thought nothing of it. Just to check everything was okay, I picked up my phone and rang Grace. Call number 1, straight to voicemail. Call number 2, straight to voicemail. Call number 15, straight to voicemail. We'd had nothing from Grace. Straight away I called as many of her friends I knew as possible. Each of them said the same. She was last seen walking back with Barney and he'd been killed. By this point I was desperate to wake up from this nightmare. It was a nightmare I couldn't escape. To this day I'm haunted by the thoughts of what my sister's final moments must have been. Unimaginable pain, complete agony, and yet the unthinkable courage to stand alone and fight off an armed attacker in desperate attempt to save her friend's life. She was a warrior fighting off a coward. I often find myself trapped in an endless spiral of questions. What if? What if she just ran? What if she just got an Uber? What if she left 2 minutes later? I end up concluding that a few moments were the difference between what had been a life filled with laughter and one I now live marked by loss and isolation. Not to mention, if several institutions had done jobs correctly, none of these what-ifs would have even mattered in the first place. To have my life ahead of me, without my best friend alongside me every step of the way, will forever be incomplete. Without her, there's a ceiling on life. No matter what I achieve or the joy and success the future brings, it will always fall miles short of the life it could have been with her in it. And this is a new reality a teenager like me has had to try and make any sense of. Even in the darkest moments, Grace's courage has shone brighter than anything else. It is only fitting and a pure reflection of who she was that she's received one of the highest honours of bravery this country can bestow. As her brother, it comes as no surprise, as this was Grace to a T. Someone who'd stand up for her friends no matter the situation, which is crystal clear. We often use the phrase putting your life on the line as an exaggeration and figure of speech, but my sister truly lived those words.
That is Grace's brother James O'Malley Kumar, who was speaking at a press conference as Grace's family received the medal in her honour. 21 minutes after 12 o'clock. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. I'm Nana Akua. Lots more coming up on today's show. We'll bring you more reaction to the devastating news that the former England rugby captain Lewis Moody has been diagnosed with motor neurone disease. But after the break, Donald Trump urges Israel and Hamas to move fast to agree a peace deal to bring an end to the conflict in Gaza. All of that and more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racist tonight on the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Bad day for us today, Penny.
Yeah.
With losing our friend, Mr. John Stapleton, totally unexpectedly. I mean, of course, we knew he was ill.
Yes,
but we
didn't know he was ill.
We didn't know he was about to die.
Well, no. When he came in, we came in to the studio, and the three of us kind of were reunited.
Just a month ago.
Just a month ago, exactly. And yesterday, the lovely thing was that I had so many texts from people who you'd recognise as well from GMTV days, other people as well. Everybody saying what a gent he was and how kind and, you know, from my point of view, the reason he stayed a friend, you know, obviously, you know, you have these, you call them screen husbands, screen wives, but the reason he stayed a friend was because he was genuinely funny. He made me laugh a lot, all the time. And, in fact, I just recently did a little podcast with him. We were talking about things that he hated and everything, and he was talking about he hated people driving around with cars with their windows open and really loud music.
Yeah.
And he was just going, you know, he said, I just shout at them, can you turn it up a bit? There's somebody in Australia who can't quite hear the words. So you never expect it, you never want it. The people you love, you want to live forever. That's it.
That's very well said, yeah. I obviously was very friendly. He was, when we say a gentleman, he was gentle. He was a gentle soul. And then he became very nasty. It was very difficult to like and get on with. It was just you know, when Manchester United started to decline in terms of superiority, and he became so... He became so arrogant.
No, he really did
not. He was unbearable.
He so didn't.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. 25 minutes after midday. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. Loads happening today. As you know, we are live at the Conservative Party conference. Should we cross live there now? GB News' Deputy Political Editor Tom Harwood and GB News' political correspondent Olivia Artley join me. Tom, so any more updates and what can we expect in the coming few hours?
Yes, Nana, it's not just me and Olivia here for you, but we've actually got a shadow cabinet minister. It's Victoria Atkins, the shadow Secretary of State for the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. DEFRA for short. It's much nicer to say DEFRA, isn't it? Although not everyone knows what that means. But it's a really important department, I suppose, because farming has been such a crucial issue over the course of the last 12 months. Perhaps one of the defining issues of this government. What have you had to say today?
Well, today Personally, I have taken inspiration from the rallies that we've seen across the countryside over the last 12 months that have been campaigning against the family farm tax and the family business tax, and we have brought that vibe here to conference. So I was standing in front of a very beautiful, shiny JCB tractor just now, giving people our Conservative message on farming and the environment and on our worries about the cost of living. So we will axe the family farm tax and the family business tax. We have made that commitment. We came out immediately against those vindictive taxes when Rachel Reeves announced them. But we've also talked about the longer term thinking that we're doing. So we will be looking at regulators and regulations, because I hear from all my travels around the country just how difficult organisations such as Natural England and the Environment Agency can sometimes make life for rural communities, and also looking at the rural economy and doing what I can to support Mel in revitalising the economy after the terrible socialist experiment that we're seeing at the moment. And then I talked about our values because I asked to be Shadow DEFRA Secretary. I asked Kemi, I wanted this role because I think having the joy of representing a very rural and coastal constituency such as Louth and Horncastle in Lincolnshire, but also my childhood growing up in the Lancashire countryside, I know just how critical our rural and coastal communities are, and I want to show people that I've been very frank, we've got some things right in government, we've got some things wrong, but we are determined as Conservatives now to put food production at the very heart of our agricultural and environmental policy, and to help conserve our great country. Clue is in the name of our party, the Conservatives. We want to conserve our beautiful countryside. We want to help our farming industry really thrive, not just survive. And the policies of this government, sadly, are doing they seem to be doing everything they can to wreck that.
Now, just before I bring in Olivia, who was there watching your speech in the sort of huddle in the centre of this exhibition space, what do you say to the Labour politicians who we often ask them about the family farm tax, and they say it only applies to millionaires, people sitting on land of £3 million plus. It's not going to affect the vast majority of farmers. You're just sticking up for landed gentry.
Well, can I thank GB because you have done a fantastic job in the last 12 months of bringing the plight of our farmers to everybody's knowledge. So thank you for that. With these Labour MPs, I mean, I had one of them in the chamber because we're trying to use every parliamentary means we can to hold this super majority to account. We forced a vote. Every single Labour MP, not a single one of them chose to support our motion to axe the tax. But the Labour MPs seem to be under this illusion that just because a family has farmed farmland for generations and generations, first of all, they assume all farmers own the land they farm. They don't. There are many, 14,000 tenant farmers who do not own the land they farm. But secondly, that they think somehow this is if you own the land, you're asset rich and therefore you must be cash rich, and nothing could be further from the truth. And so it really is a case of trying to make these Labour MPs understand the constituencies they represent.
I mean, farmers are your bread and butter voters, really, and we've seen voters up and down the country talking about voting Conservative over the last year or so, ever since this tax was announced. But recently, some of them are suggesting that they might vote Reform. A poll in the Times suggested that although the majority of farmers, 38%, would back the Conservatives, 36% would now back Reform. What do you have to offer? Reform is ahead in the polls. If people are choosing at the next election between the Conservatives and Reform, if farmers are choosing, your offering might be good, Reform's are similar, they're more likely to get into power. Why should farmers vote for you rather than Reform?
So I don't accept any of those premises, because we are still 3 years away from the general election. There isn't going to be a general election tomorrow. But what we have to do is learn from the mistakes of Labour in opposition. They had 14 years. They did nothing to plan for what they would do when they were in government. And many people in rural and coastal communities will have lent them their vote 18 months ago, and they have now been completely let down from them. So what we will offer are the following. First of all, we are going to be positive. I can happily speak about with great ease, talk about the devastating impacts of Labour's no farming policies. But I also want to offer a positive vision, and a lot of this is going to take a bit of thinking and a lot of very methodical work. work. Now, that isn't the sort of headline-grabbing stories that Reform seems to indulge in, but the truth is we need to work through this system of quangos. We need to get a system of regulation that works so that when we come back into government, it is there ready to be set up. The difference between Reform and the Conservatives is that we are a whole team of people working on this. Reform has a one-man band, but most importantly of all, we know that headlines, whilst they're very good at grabbing headlines, they do not make a difference when you've got bad weather, a terrible harvest, or you're worrying about the future of your family business. And one of the biggest problems that Reform presents, particularly to farmers, is that they want to fling open the trade deals so that chlorinated chicken and hormone-treated beef will be washing upon our shores. That is a real threat to British farming, and we are about saving it, not crucifying it on the altar of Nigel Farage's US trade deal.
Interesting. OK, well, Victoria Atkins, thanks indeed for joining us, Environment Secretary. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for, but back to you in the studio, Nana.
All right, thank you very much, Tom and Olivia. Right, Donald Trump has urged negotiations between Israel and Hamas to move quickly as delegates prepare to meet in Egypt today. The US president warned in a post on Truth Social that time was of the essence and more bloodshed could follow. This is what President Trump had to say about the peace deal. Hamas has agreed to parts of Trump's 20-point plan, including the release of Israeli hostages, but hasn't accepted the conditions. Well, joining me now is a senior lecturer in security studies at King's College London, Dr. Andreas Craig. So, Dr. Andreas, thank you very much for joining me. So where are we with this supposed negotiation? Because we hear Israel is still firing rockets, but apparently Hamas has agreed the deal. So where are we in it?
I think the truth is somewhere in between what Trump is posting and boasting about and obviously what's going on the ground. I mean, this was never going to be a dictate where Donald Trump comes up with a very limited sort of 20 points plan to an immensely complex problem, and Hamas would just swallow the pill, particularly as Israel makes some last-minute changes to the plan. But I think we're at a point of where negotiations can begin. I think both sides agree that a settlement needs to happen, that they have to come to an agreement, that the military sort of, the war has taken its course, and now we have to find a diplomatic solution to it. So I think we have a massive Venn diagram for the first time in 2 years where both sides can really talk to one another and negotiate. The only issue is that we don't really have timelines attached to it. I mean, Trump is now putting pressure at timelines in terms of saying you have to come to an agreement sooner rather than later. But on extremely complex issues, I don't think you can just hammer out in a matter of hours or days. And I think that's kind of the issue. And as you already mentioned, Israel is not halting its military offensive, keeps on pounding Palestinians in Gaza, who obviously makes it much more difficult for Hamas to actually find the various hostages that they're still holding across the Gaza Strip. So I think, Israel needs to do the first step in stopping the bombardment, and then we need to have some serious negotiations, which going to start with a release of hostages after 2 years in captivity.
But interesting that you say that he shouldn't put a time limit on it, when the reason he's doing that, and he said it expressly, that because he wants the killing to stop. So it is wise to put a time limit on things. Otherwise, they just go open-ended. That's one of the gifts I think Trump has, is that in any business negotiation, when I used to do a lot of business, it was always never come off the phone without the next point of action, and also have a limit as to when that should be done. Because otherwise, you could have this open-ended thing that's supposedly meant to happen at some point in time, but in the meantime, more people are dying.
Absolutely right. I mean, we don't want to get into this kind of procrastination mode. And both sides, I mean, Hamas and Israel have this history of procrastination where they kind of feel the status quo is serving them, right? The war is serving Netanyahu because he stays in power. He doesn't have to have election. He doesn't have to face his coalition domestically. And it serves Hamas as well because, they obviously want to stay in power and manage whatever is left to manage. So, I mean, both sides are procrastinating in that respect. I get that point. What is important, though, is that there is a roadmap that we say, OK, first we negotiate the release of all hostages, but at the same time, Hamas will probably not surrender all their bargaining chips without getting some solid concessions from the Israelis. And so far, Israel has been very hesitant to commit to a full withdrawal from the Gaza Strip and also have made it very clear that they're not committing to the creation of a Palestinian state, or at least to an avenue towards Palestinian statehood. And I think that is a sticking point that they need to hammer out now, get to some sort of agreement, and then move forward. I think the pressure is also on the mediators. I mean, Qatar in particular, who's the chief negotiator here, and Qatar is very, very eager to get something going and bring it back to the Israelis and say, look, Hamas is agreeing to this, now the ball is in your court, and then Israel will have to take the next step. So I think diplomacy of small steps is important, but as you rightly say, it can't be indefinite, it has to be tied to some timetables.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. Thank you very much, Dr. Andreas Craig. He's a senior lecturer in security studies at King's College London. Thank you for your thoughts. Right, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Coming up, we will be discussing Lewis Moody's motor neuron disease diagnosis. All of that and much more after your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon. Your half-past headlines at 37 minutes past 12. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride has told his party conference there's no more pretending we can spend money we don't have. The Conservatives are promising a £5,000 first job bonus to help young people buy their first home, funded by £47 billion in spending cuts. France's Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu has resigned just hours after unveiling his new cabinet. The shock move comes less than a month after he took office amid fierce criticism from MPs over his largely unchanged lineup. Donald Trump is urging negotiators to move fast as peace talks begin in Egypt to end the Gaza war. Hamas has accepted parts of his 20-point plan, including freeing hostages, but rejected calls to disarm. Israeli strikes have continued overnight. Here, Jaguar Land Rover is restarting production this week after a major cyber attack that cost the car maker around £50 million a week. Its Wolverhampton engine plant will be the first back online. Nearly 30 million UK smartphone owners could get £17 each if consumer group Which wins its case against chip maker Qualcomm. They're accused of inflating iPhone and Samsung prices through unfair licensing fees. The trial in London is expected to last 5 weeks. And in the Himalayas, 350 hikers have been rescued from blizzards near Everest Tibetan slopes, but more than 200 remain trapped as extreme weather batters the region. Those are the headlines. I'll be back with you around 1 o'clock.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Thank you, Sam. Lots more coming up on today's show. We'll be reacting to the breaking news. The best-selling author Jilly Cooper has sadly passed away at the age of 88. All of that and much more. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a stormy weekend, it's a more settled picture now, fine and dry for many areas, but at times it could still be wet and windy across the far northwest. High pressure is mostly dominating, particularly across the south, bringing us the fine, settled conditions. But notice more isobars on the chart to the northwest, so often blustery here. Also more cloud and some wet weather, particularly across western Scotland. A fair amount of cloud across northern and western parts of England today, but across central areas, parts of the east and southeast, plenty of sunshine here. And it is going to be feeling warm in the sunshine, highs reaching around 20 to 21 degrees Celsius across the far southeast. Even across eastern Scotland it should be fairly warm in the sunshine, temperatures reaching the low 20s here also. Now, through the course of the evening, it's still going to remain fairly blustery across coasts of Scotland. Still outbreaks of rain continuing across the very far north. It could be heavy here at times. A chance of coastal gales through the course of the night, particularly around western exposed coasts. Northern Ireland and northwest England could also see a fair amount of clouds start to push in from the west, fairly similar across Wales and parts of the southwest too. And this cloud could be thick enough to produce some light outbreaks of drizzle, particularly around any hilly areas. More cloud will continue to push in from the west, so it's going to be be a fairly mild night. Any breaks in the cloud, particularly across the east, we could start to see some fog develop during the early hours of the morning, and further outbreaks of rain spreading into the far northwest, so quite a damp start for Scotland and Northern Ireland through the early hours of the morning. But as I say, it should be a mostly mild night, lows reaching around 11 to 12 degrees Celsius across many towns and cities. So a wet start once again across western parts of Scotland, also Northern Ireland. This band of rain will slowly push its way southwards, moving into the Scottish borders, northern parts of England, perhaps even northern parts of Wales through the course of the day. As it clears Northern Ireland and Scotland, turning brighter here, bar the odd shower. But elsewhere across central areas, parts of the southeast, more cloud around, so it's not going to be feeling quite as warm. Highs reaching around 18 degrees Celsius.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Road users should be cautious on the A92 Tay Road Bridge due to high winds. A speed limit of 30 miles per hour is in place, and the bridge is closed to double-decker buses. There's a road traffic incident on Warwickshire's M40 northbound between junction 11 and 12, closing one of 3 lanes and leading to 50-minute delays. In Hampshire, a broken-down vehicle on the M27 westbound between junction 9 and 8 has closed one of 4 lanes. And on the trains, Cross Country has ceased services through Gloucester, while Great Western Railway is replacing trains with buses, impacting travel between Plymouth and Gunnerslake. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain, 12:42. It's been revealed that this morning England rugby legend Lewis Moody has confirmed he's been diagnosed with motor neurone disease. Take a listen.
It's never me that I feel sad for. It's the sort of sadness around having to tell my mum, having to tell the boys. I mean, you know, 2 brilliant boys, and that was pretty heartbreaking, wasn't it? But I don't want to get stuck in the negativity or the doom and gloom, and I want to stay positive. I want to, you know, stay in the moment.
Very sad news. Joining me now is former rugby player and co-founder of Head for Change, Alex Popham. Alex, I have sort of looked and noticed that there are quite a few rugby players that seem to be succumbing to motor neurone disease, which seems quite a rare condition. Is there some reason in your mind as to why rugby players may be more susceptible?
Well, yeah, if you look at the numbers that have been diagnosed or have passed away with motor neurone disease, it's a lot higher than. If I look at it, I know more rugby players that have died or have been diagnosed with motor neurone disease than have passed away or have got cancer. So, with cancer being 1 in 2, and more rugby players that I know have passed away is a unbelievable stat, and it's down to the contacts they receive during their rugby career. And and we've got to be honest with what is happening. There's independent research out there from Willie Stewart, a pathologist, world-renowned pathologist from Scotland, that his study 2 years ago showed that you were 15 times more likely to get motor neurone disease if you play international rugby. And that data, that scientific research got downplayed and said the group of people wasn't big enough. And we just got to be honest with what's going on. My wife, Mel, and I watched that news this morning, and we're both very upset after it. And it just seems that it's story after story of this devastating news with neurological complications and diseases being diagnosed to young men. I had my diagnosis 5 years ago, and nothing has changed since then to make the sport safer.
And how are you coping with your diagnosis? Because you seem quite well. I know in many cases it can progress quite quickly. Have they found some medicines that might help you and slow down the condition?
Yeah, I've been aware. I've had experimental treatment that has definitely helped, especially with my headaches. I've got my book of notes here that I'm using to remember the points that I want to get across, because if I didn't have that, I'd be talking and not making a lot of sense. But I'm just trying to, as Lewis, trying to be positive with this. Life isn't perfect, but you really do appreciate life when you get a bad or terrible diagnosis, and my heart goes out to Lewis and his family. He's an ambassador for our charity Head for Change. He's a big supporter of this issue, and changes need to be made because these stories will unfortunately continue into the future.
Yeah. They need to do research because it also affects a lot of American footballers as well. Listen, Alex,
footballers, footballers.
It's something. It's got to be. They've got to do more research. But I was going to say, Alex, you're not alone. I've got my notebook with the list of the points I've got to make too. So I get lost all the time too. Alex Popham, thank you. Really good to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
He's a former rugby player. He also has a motor neuron disease. He's the co-founder of Head for Change. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more on the way. We'll be heading back to the Conservative Party conference in Manchester as they seek to reverse their tanking poll numbers. I wonder. Right now, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here is the forecast of some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's a bit of a mixed picture across the Mediterranean over the next couple of days. Plenty of showers around for the Canaries as we head through Tuesday afternoon. Perhaps some fairly brisk winds too. But for much of Spain, Portugal, southern parts of France and Italy, there'll be plenty of sunny spells on offer. However, for the Balkans, a lot of wet weather around, perhaps even some snow over the mountains. So definitely feeling a little bit cooler here with some brisk winds too. There is going to be more sunshine on offer as we head through the rest of the week, and temperatures quite widely into the 20s for most of us.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good afternoon, Britain. Breaking news in the last hour. The sad news that best-selling novelist Dame Jilly Cooper has passed away, aged 88. The much-loved Yorkshire author passed away yesterday morning following a fall. Her agent has confirmed as tributes pour in. The Queen has issued this statement. She was a wonderfully witty and compassionate friend to me and so many, and it was a particular pleasure to see her just a few weeks ago at my Queen's Reading Room Festival, where she was, as ever, a star of the show. Well, joining me now, GB News' entertainment editor Alex Davies. So she seemed so fit and full of life, but unfortunately it was the fall that took her.
It's a real shame, yeah. Even at the age of 88, by all accounts, she was still very much the life of the party at all of these star-studded events. She obviously penned the Rutshire Chronicles books, which was Riders and Rivals. Modern audiences might know Rivals because it's currently on Disney+. It's actually filming its second series now, so the cast will undoubtedly be pretty devastated by this news.
Didn't she have a cameo in one of those?
She did. She made an appearance in the first series. That's what I mean. She got headfirst into these projects. Not only was she writing the book, she was really loved by the cast. One of them actually spoke out earlier, Victoria Smurfett. She stars in the series. She branded her a divine queen and everything that was good about being a person. And you mentioned there the Queen's statement, and quite a lovely sign-off in that one, which you didn't mention, which Camilla said, "I join my husband, the King, in sending our thoughts and sympathies to all her family, and may her hereafter be filled with impossibly handsome men and devoted dogs."
But wasn't the one, that's beautiful, wasn't the book The Man Who Made Husbands Jealous? That was one of them. I remember reading that. I was at boarding school.
There was a few. There was a bit before my time. Not quite my genre of fiction, I have to admit.
But wasn't there, that character, The Man Who Made Husbands Jealous, wasn't he based on someone?
Yeah, well, the rumour is that it was based off of Camilla's ex-husband, who spent quite a lot of time in the Cotswolds making himself familiar with people of the opposite sex, shall we say. But yeah, by all accounts, there's so many tributes from so many people, not just the people she worked with, just other familiar faces who have paid tribute to her. Giles Brandreth said that she brought sunshine and laughter to the world. Kirsty Allsop called her a British institution. Actress Helen Lederer has called her a trailblazer, an optimist. Even our very own Dawn Neeson, she did a tribute on social media, called her sexy, sassy and hot, not giving a damn until the very end. And even former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has come out, called it very sad, and branded her a storyteller whose wit and love of character brought joy to millions. Unlike some of his policies, but...
Yeah, let's not talk about Rishi Sunak. But I've got to say, Jilly Cooper, every time you saw her, she had a smile on her face. She's a very cheerful soul. And I must say, I don't know what I would have done without her when I was at boarding school.
Well, she was made a Dame last year for her efforts as well, for her work. She was truly a British icon.
At boarding school, all girls, no men, so I have to say the books were a very pleasant read. Alex, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. That's Alex Davis. He's our entertainment editor, giving you that sad news that Jilly Cooper has sadly passed away. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. Do not go anywhere. We'll be heading back to the Conservative Party conference in Manchester. But first, the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a stormy weekend, it's a more settled picture now, fine and dry for many areas, but at times it could still be wet and windy across the far northwest. High pressure is mostly dominating, particularly across the south, bringing us the fine, settled conditions. But notice more isobars on the chart to the northwest, so often blustery here. Also more cloud and some wet weather, particularly across western Scotland. A fair amount of cloud across northern and western parts of England today, but across central areas, parts of the east and southeast, plenty of sunshine here. And it is going to be feeling warm in the sunshine, highs reaching around 20 to 21 degrees Celsius across the far southeast. Even across eastern Scotland, it should be fairly warm in the sunshine, temperatures reaching the low 20s here also. Now, through the course of the evening, it's still going to remain fairly blustery across coasts of Scotland. Still outbreaks of rain continuing across the very far north. It could be heavy here at times. A chance of coastal gales through the course of the night, particularly around western exposed coasts. Northern Ireland and northwest England could also see a fair amount of clouds start to push in from the west, fairly similar across Wales and parts of the southwest too. And this cloud could be thick enough to produce some light outbreaks of drizzle, particularly around any hilly areas. More cloud will continue to push in from the west, so it's going to be a fairly mild night. Any breaks in the cloud, particularly across the east, we could start to see some fog develop during the early hours of the morning, and further outbreaks of rain spreading into the far northwest, so quite a damp start for Scotland and Northern Ireland through the early hours of the morning. But as I say, it should be a mostly mild night, lows reaching around 11 to 12 degrees Celsius across many towns and cities. So a wet start once again across western parts of Scotland, also Northern Ireland. This band of rain will slowly push its way southwards, moving into the Scottish borders, northern parts of England, perhaps even northern parts of Wales through the course of the day. As it clears Northern Ireland and Scotland, turning brighter here, bar the odd shower. But elsewhere across central areas, parts of the southeast, more cloud around, so it's not going to be feeling quite as warm. Highs reaching around 18 degrees Celsius.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
I was very lucky enough to be at the station today to welcome it in, be part of the group welcoming it into the station. It's about 1:15 this morning. So I'm back down in London again now. It's been a busy old day. But yeah, I've been on that train previously on the main line. We took it out for a test run a couple of weeks ago, and we were in those wagons under moonlight. So this little engine pulled us along a branch line. And under test, but this incredible replica train, a complete train, genuinely is a direct link with the past, and lets us understand a little bit what it was like to have technology like this at the time, and then showcase this phenomenal little machine and this train, these vehicles, how we can solve problems today, actually, and how far we've come, and shows the heritage of Britain's genuinely incredible railway network.
It is a pretty little train, actually, isn't it? And if you say that it can help you solve problems today, in what way? I mean, this, compared with that machine it is next to, it's incredibly primitive. So what can we learn from this little thing?
Well, I think that the same problems extend as today, right? That we need to move people and things from A to B. And what's so lovely about seeing a machine like this, locomotion number 1 replica, of course, is that it genuinely shows us how someone thought, I've got a problem. How do I move coal and people from up there to over there? And actually the answer was railways. And so often today, the most efficient way of moving people around still in railways.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on GB News, Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua, and I'm joined throughout the show by Tom Harwood, live from the Conservative Party conference in Manchester. So the Conservatives pledged to slash billions in welfare spending, looking to use their conference to paint themselves as the fiscally responsible party. But will this be enough to boost their tanking poll numbers? In an attempt to win over aspiring homeowners, both the Tories and Labour have announced policies designed to make home ownership easier. But which one has the better plan? And Gary Neville sparks fury by tearing down a Union flag, one of his Manchester building sites, as he urges people to rethink what patriotism is.
The division that's being created is absolutely disgusting. Mainly created by angry, middle-aged white men who know exactly what they're doing.
I'll give over, Gary. Also, it's been announced that Nottingham attack victim Grace O'Malley Kumar will be posthumously awarded the George Medal for her astonishing courage in giving her life to try and protect her friend Barnaby Webber. And police are set to be given new powers to restrict pro-Palestine protests after the Home Secretary admitted British Jews were justified in feeling let down by Labour. But is this an attack on fundamental freedoms? So Gary Neville, oh my goodness, really, seriously, I give up. He's having a go at middle-aged white men, who are probably the very people who went to see him play against, guess what? Playing for England. Yes, he played for England. And we have numerous pictures of Gary Neville as he stands behind a George cross and, you know, sings the national anthem. Is that divisive, Gary? I just despair. I don't know what's happening. It's football. It seems to be a couple of footballers of that era. Another good friend of his, Gary Lineker, who seems to think that it's a good idea to bash this country and the patriotism that is shown by people in this country and kind of demean our flag and make out that people who are carrying it, there's something wrong with you and that it's divisive. People watching from other countries would find this totally absurd because most people are quite patriotic about their countries and their flags. But what do you think? Is Gary Neville right? Is it divisive? Is it mostly white middle men who are carrying these flags for nefarious reasons? gbnews.com/your say. Send me your thoughts, post your comments, but first, let's get your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. The top story this lunchtime. The Conservatives are promising a £5,000 boost for first-time buyers to help young people onto the property ladder. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride unveiled the plan at the party's conference today in Manchester, saying it will be funded by £47 billion in cuts. Welfare, the civil service and foreign aid are all in the firing line as the Tories try to prove they're tougher on spending than Labour. Well, it comes almost a year since Kemi Badenoch took over as Tory leader and just weeks before Labour's budget, where tax rises haven't been ruled out. Here's Mel Stride speaking earlier today.
No more pretending we can keep spending money we simply do not have. It falls to us, as today's Conservatives, to do the responsible thing. That's the right thing for our country. And it's also the right thing for the next generation. So to younger people, I say, we will get debt off your back. We can and we will.
Well, that comes as a major shake-up to home buying system could make moving house cheaper, faster and less stressful. The government says its proposals could shave a month off the process and save buyers around £700 on average. Plans include forcing sellers and agents to provide more upfront information and introducing binding contracts earlier to stop chains from collapsing. The Housing Secretary Steve Reed says it's about turning a simple dream into a simple reality, with a full roadmap expected in the new year. France has today been plunged into fresh political turmoil after the Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu quit less than a day after unveiling his cabinet. He said conditions were not fulfilled for him to continue, blaming gridlock in the Parliament. The shock move comes just 26 days after he took office, becoming France's fifth Prime Minister in under 2 years. It leaves President Emmanuel Macron facing mounting pressure to call early elections or risk another short-lived government. Stocks in Paris have already fallen sharply since that announcement. Donald Trump says peace talks between Israel and Hamas in Egypt have been very successful, urging negotiators to continue and move fast to avoid bloodshed. Hamas has agreed to parts of a 20-point US plan, including freeing hostages, but rejected calls to disarm. It comes as Israeli airstrikes have continued overnight, despite the US president calling for an immediate halt. At least 65 more people were killed in the past 24 hours. Both sides are sending top delegations to Cairo for what could be the most crucial negotiations since the war began nearly 2 years ago. Trump says the first phase of his 20-point deal could be completed this week. Here, Jaguar Land Rover is restarting production after a major cyber attack forced the car maker to shut down its UK factories for over a month. The first site to reopen will be JLR's engine plant in Wolverhampton. The hack is thought to have cost the company around £50 million a week. The government has pledged a £1.5 billion loan guarantee to help some of the suppliers hit by the shutdown. And JLR says its recovery programme is now firmly underway. Nearly 30 million people across the UK who bought an Apple or Samsung phone could get around £17 each if a landmark lawsuit against tech giant Qualcomm succeeds. The consumer group Which is taking the chip maker to the Competition Appeal Tribunal in London, accusing it of inflating prices and abusing its market power. The 5-week trial will determine whether Qualcomm's practices did indeed push smartphone costs up for British consumers. If Which wins, it could mean a £480 million payout across the UK. Qualcomm, though, denies any wrongdoing, saying the case has no basis. The latest Gallantry Awards, which honour extraordinary acts of bravery, have recognised 20 people, including Nottingham student Grace O'Malley-Kumar for her exceptional courage in the face of extreme danger. The 19-year-old medical student was killed in 2023 while trying to protect her friend Barnaby Webber during the Nottingham attacks. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer says her legacy will live on as a powerful example of heroism. Other recipients of the award include 2 police officers who stopped a man from falling from a bridge. Grace's family have today been speaking and received the medal in her honour. And tributes are being shared across the literary world today for the much-loved author Dame Jilly Cooper, who has died at the age of 88. Her children say her death came as a shock after a fall on Sunday morning, describing her as the shining light in their lives. Her agent called her unbeatable in her ability to write stories that added to the sum of human happiness. Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back with you shortly. Next, though, let's take a look at the lunchtime markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Well, the pound will buy you $1.3419 and €1.1507 euros. The price of gold, £2,934 and 1 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,499 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Sam. Good afternoon, Britain. It's day 2 of the Conservative Party conference in Manchester, and the Shadow Chancellor has delivered his speech this morning. Addressing party members, Mel Stride urged the Conservatives to hold their nerve in the face of stagnant poll numbers. He also pledged that a future Conservative government would scrap business rates for shops and pubs on high streets. Let's have a quick listen to what he had to say earlier.
Under Labour, many have seen their business rates double. We need to get business rates down. In fact, we need to go further, much, much further. So today, I can announce that as a direct result of getting public spending under control, a future Conservative government will completely abolish business rates for shops and pubs on our high streets. End of!
Oh, it sounds oh so fine. It's just such a shame. They didn't do it when they were in office, when they're in power, because perhaps, I don't know, there was too much infighting as well, wasn't it? It was a bit of a disaster the last few years. Let's cross live now to the conference as GB News' Deputy Political Editor and GB News' political correspondent Olivia Utley join me now. Tom, Harwood and Olivia, good to see you. Do you think people will ever forgive the Conservatives? That's just not sure that there's any hope for them, but they seem to think they can push through and change minds.
Well, it's a good question, Nana, and it's one that we'll put to Mark Francois, MP, who joins us here on the GB News stand. Mark, it's all very well and good saying that you're going to cut £47 billion of public spending, but you guys were in government just over a year ago, and taxes went up rather than spending coming down.
Well, as everyone knows, that we had to deal with a global pandemic. We had to keep the economy alive. We had to keep businesses functioning. Things like those bounce back loans helped businesses to keep their heads above water. So any government would have had to spend money, but clearly now, given the economic situation that we face, we're going to have a massive tax-raising budget in November by the look of it. The recent OBR forecast shows that Reeve's challenge is even bigger than many people feared. What Mel has done, rather than just saying, oh, we're going to reduce public spending and people roll their eyes, he's given very specific examples of how we're going to do that. So I hope we will get some credit for the fact that we've spent months preparing this presentation, and now Mel has explained not just we're going to save public money, he's actually said how we're going to do that, and hopefully he will get some credit for it.
You must obviously be pleased that Kemi Badenoch has finally said that the Conservatives would like to withdraw from the ECHR.
No, I'm not pleased. I'm delighted.
Is it far enough, though? I mean, David Gort, your former colleague, is saying in the Times today that it wouldn't be enough to pause illegal migration. It wouldn't be enough to stop the boats. You were really on the hard line of this when your party was in government. Some people have suggested you might be a potential defector to reform. Isn't this a bit too little too late from your party?
Well, just on that last point, no, I'm not defecting to reform. When I remarried a few years ago, Nigel Farage was a guest at my wedding. So he and I go back a long way, but no, I'm a Tory, this is my tribe, and I ain't leaving it. So I hope that's pretty clear.
Even though their immigration policy is stronger than yours at the moment.
Well, let's come on to that. You are never going to stop the boats unless you leave the ECHR. We've now said that we're going to do that. It is necessary but not sufficient, because legally, there are always going to be endless appeals. So we've now, we've crossed the Rubicon on this. We said we're going to leave. You then need other things like a Rwanda-type scheme. Now, we had the Rwanda plan. Some people liked it, some people didn't. But it's one more plan that Labour have got, and what we see from the government now are endless gimmicks, and digital ID cards is yet another gimmick, all designed to distract us from the fact that the boats just keep coming. So if we were ever going to stop that, there are a number of things we needed to do. Leaving the ECHR is fundamental to that, and we now said we're going to do it.
Mark, you say necessary but not sufficient. Of course, yesterday this party put out a 7-point plan, the Borders Plan, a slightly tortured mnemonic, BORDERS. I've actually got, I'm not going to show you, I'm going to be kind of cruel to you, Mark Francois.
No, you're not going to do what's the B and the O and the R.
I'm afraid, so the B is ban asylum claims for illegal entrance. Do you know what the O in the Borders Plan stands for?
Tom, the whole thing is a package. I said necessary but not sufficient, right? So you need to take a culmination of measures.
The O in the Borders Plan?
Tom.
Out of the ECHR,
yes.
repeal the HR. What was the R?
Tom, you need a whole package, which is what this is. So you have to leave the ECHR. We said that we're going to do that. But then you have to have a number of other measures as well. The problem with what the Labour Party are doing is it's one gimmick after another, and I want to make a point about digital ID cards.
Yeah.
We are opposed to those. It would be a multi-million pound gimmick which still wouldn't stop the boats coming.
Okay.
As a constituency MP, I get more and more emails from people saying, when is someone going to stop the boats? We had a plan to do it, Labour don't.
Mark, you're too much of a pro. I tried to get you to play the game, and you
I'm sorry about that, Tom.
You can learn the Borders plan here. The R was a removals force in the style of ICE in the United States. But I wonder, has this left a vacuum? I mean, you finally got a policy on borders, but it did take a year to come up with.
Well, we've got a conference here where we're rolling out detailed policy. You in the media, a politician makes an announcement, and you in the media go, oh, gimmick, give me the detail. Here you go, here's your detail. Here's the detail in Mel's presentation about how we would actually cut public spending. So, on the one hand, we get criticised for taking too long to come up with policy. Then when we come up with very detailed, thought-through policy, we get criticised. So, I think actually, hopefully, we've now got the balance right. On the ECHR, serious point if I may, we know that immigration's been a challenge for us politically. I hope now that we've said this, we'll start to get a hearing on immigration more widely. I think now that we've done that and people have said they've bitten the bullet, I think they'll start to give us a greater hearing on some of these other things.
I mean, you say you want a hearing on immigration, and you've said that you want to introduce some sort of ICE-style, Trump-esque way of removing people who've come to this country. And yet, sort of 20 minutes after that speech was made, there were senior Conservatives saying, well, actually, we'd do it in a very compassionate, gentle way, which isn't very Trump-esque at all. It sounds a bit as though you want to have it both ways.
Now, I see as a constituency MP real frustration in my, what we used to call our post bag, now it's your email inbox, isn't it? You know, so people might be complaining they can't get a GP's appointment, or their NEOP might have been cancelled. And in somewhere in the fourth paragraph of the email, it says, but if I came over here on a boat, I'd get all of this for free. I mean, people are genuinely really angry with this. So the fact that we've now come up with a coherent plan to be able to deal with that, I think we should get some credit for. So again, sorry to hammer the nail slightly, but the fact we've now been really clear about the ECHR, and we've had very little splashback within the party, one or two, but hardly any sitting Tory MP has objected to this, I think means hopefully the public will now start to take us seriously on this issue again, which is clearly what we need to do if we're going to work our way back into government.
Now, I know an issue you've been campaigning on for many, many years is vexatious claims against our servicemen who served in Northern Ireland. You're, of course, a former Defence Minister yourself. I've heard on the grapevine that there might be something on this issue coming about in this party conference.
Yes, we've got a defence session tomorrow headed up by my boss, James Cartledge. We're going to be saying more about that tomorrow. Don't want to preempt that. But there's a public petition which many of your viewers who feel strongly on this have signed to defend Northern Ireland veterans against prosecutions. It recently went through 1/5 signatures. In essence, we're absolutely opposed to Labour's plans for two-tier justice. What Labour are proposing would mean that they could continue to start going again after Northern Ireland veterans whilst making it easier for Jerry Adams to sue the British taxpayer. That makes veterans angry, it makes the Conservative Party angry, it makes the public angry. We'll be saying more about that tomorrow.
Well, all ears to the floor on that one. Mark Francois, thanks indeed for joining us. But back to you, Nana.
Thank you very much, Tom Harwood. I wanted him to spell out each of those letters and tell us what they all mean. That's what I wanted to hear. But stay with us, plenty more still to come. And your chance to win our biggest Great British giveaway ever, worth over £104,000. Here are the details.
You're not going to want to miss our greatest Great British giveaway so far. You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. With thanks to Marquis Leisure, this brand new 2025 Benimar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. And remember, if you can dream it, you can drive it away. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon to you. Lots more coming up on today's show. We'll be discussing the housing pledges made by both the Conservatives and Labour as both parties look to win over aspiring homeowners. All of that and more. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon, Britain. Now, the Conservatives have set out plans to reward work by giving young people a £5,000 tax rebate towards their first home when they get their first full-time job. Now, this is after Labour announced their biggest shake-up on house buying, promising to speed up the process, aiming to end nasty surprises which result in last-minute collapses and give greater confidence to first-time buyers. Well, let's go back to Manchester and speak to Tom Harwood, who's joined by the CEO of Britain Remade, Sam Richards. Tom,
Yes, I'm here with Sam Richards of Britain Remade, the campaign group that wants to get Britain building again. Also, former number 10 advisor. Clearly, there is a big gap, I suppose. Let's start with what we were just introducing there, the housing crisis that this country faces. What are you seeing in terms of the differences between the Conservative and the Labour Party in this space? Because you were up at the Labour Party conference as well. And it's interesting, they're saying build, baby, build, but housing starts are at a record low.
Exactly that, they're saying that, but there's a growing gulf between their rhetoric and what's actually happening. So their planning and infrastructure bill is meant to be getting the economy building again. But as things stand, house building in London has collapsed. Over half in fact, of the grid upgrades that we're going to need are currently delayed. And the Prime Minister made no more bat tunnels, the acid test of his planning bill.
Now, for people that don't know, a bat tunnel, I mean, this is the disaster that is HS2, where £125 million was spent on a useless tunnel to protect around 100 bats.
That's right. So 300 Beckstein's bats that live in a nearby wood to where the line goes through. Not actually the wood that the line goes through, but a nearby wood. And we were required to build a over £120 million bat tunnel to try and protect these bats in case they weren't near there. So the PM said, right, we're not going to have that anymore, and that's why he brought in this bill. Unfortunately, the habitats regulations that require these crackers mitigation schemes, they remain in place untouched.
So the Prime Minister said that he was going to abolish these bat tunnels, and actually the regulations that forced the train line to build the bat tunnels is still going to.
That's exactly right.
This is wild.
Yeah.
But of course, when we're talking about infrastructure planning, it's not just the houses and the train lines. This is also about our energy infrastructure, and energy is such an important element. We've just had the Shadow Energy Secretary speak at this conference today. Now, she wants to abolish the Climate Change Act. It's a big step. I mean, this is what's governed our energy policy since 2008. What do you make of that?
I think that the Shadow Secretary of State has set out that the focus is going to be on getting much cheaper power, and that's absolutely the right focus. As things stand, we have the highest industrial energy costs in the world, and just figures released in the last week or so, the second highest domestic bills in the world. So clearly that focus on getting bills down is absolutely right. And also it's the case that if you care about climate change, we need other people to follow our lead, and they're not going to do that if we impoverish ourselves in the pursuit of net zero. We do need to tackle climate change, but the way to do that is by bringing down those energy costs.
Is it possible to bring down our carbon emissions and bring down costs at the same time? Because, I mean, looking at the history of the last 20 years, as we've brought down our emissions, we've also brought down our generation, and we've pumped up our costs.
Well, look, you know what country has managed to do that successfully? France, by building out their fleet of nuclear reactors. Now, we used to build nuclear a lot cheaper in this country. We're currently building the most expensive nuclear power plant in the world at Hinkley, indeed the most expensive ever built in the history of the human race. But it didn't always used to be like this. 20 years ago, they were half the price. The fleet that we built in the 50s and 60s was a quarter of the cost of the new nuclear fleet now. So we absolutely can get those costs down for new nuclear and both decarbonise and also grow our economy. But that requires dealing with that red tape that leads to your bat tunnels and the ridiculous environmental mitigations.
Yes, I think one of those environmental mitigations is known as a fish disco, where underwater speakers were placed or were demanded to be placed in the cooling systems for one of these power stations, and in order to stop the fish getting sucked into the cooling systems like they do in every other nuclear power station around the world, they had to install underwater speakers to blast, probably not music, but it could have been music, was it?
It was, what's a song from A Shark's Tale?
Some sort of Disney, no, goodness me.
No, exactly that. But no, it's absolutely crackers.
No, okay, I understand that. You want cheap nuclear power.
Yeah.
Ultimately, why is the Climate Change Act relevant there? Couldn't we do that with the Climate Change Act in place? Isn't the real thing here that the Shadow Energy Secretary says we need a lot more gas power generation?
That's definitely part of the story as well. But I think the move away from the Climate Change Act is actually a bigger story than just climate change. For decades now, we've had this model of running the country that has involved binding ministers' hands with these long-term laws, setting up new quangos, and then outside organisations, NGOs, JRing government if they...
That's a judicial review.
So suing the government if they then don't meet these targets. And you're seeing from the review of the ECHR to the review of the Climate Change Act that the Conservative Party is recognising, actually, this is not an effective model of government.
Do you
this is
think
reducing the democratic accountability.
Do you think it's
of
fair to
ministers.
say that the Climate Change Act has been weaponised by anti-growth campaigners? If you want to stop something being built somewhere, if you want to block a new runway here, if you want to block a housing development there or a road over there, you can say that's not going to fit in the carbon budget that the Climate Change Committee sets, and that's almost sits above the government in terms of what it sets out. I mean, is that a bit of a NIMBY's charter?
There's an element of that. There's also an element of our wider environmental protections that we've talked about. Part of the story as well is this membership of the Aarhus Convention. So this is this treaty that we're signed up to that means that if you bring a judicial review on environmental grounds, then your costs are capped at 5,000, an incredibly low level. And it's very easy to crowdfund that amount, and this is why we see the majority of significant infrastructure projects in this country.
Just to put that in plain terms, that means the British taxpayer is subsidising environmental campaigners. I mean, these judicial reviews are incredibly expensive. They can run into millions and millions of pounds.
Exactly right.
And the environmental campaigner, Mr. Greenpeace or whoever, only pays £5,000, and the British taxpayer is on the hook for the rest.
Exactly that. And the mad thing about it is that these lawsuits are brought not just against roads or the other infrastructure that we need, but even against green projects, even against nuclear power stations, carbon capture and storage. These new green projects are being delayed by environmental campaigners.
Well, that's absolutely extraordinary. Do you think that Britain is going to leave that convention? Just yes or no? It seems like there's a bit of chatter around it in the policy wonk world.
Yeah.
I mean, is the government moving on this issue?
So the government have brought in this guy, Lord Banner, who did a review for the previous government. At that point, he stayed away from recommending a full Aarhus Brexit, but it would not surprise me at all if the government thinks that that is now the only way that they can deal with this problem.
Gosh, interesting. Well, Sam Richards, thanks indeed for joining us here live from the GBNews stand here at Conservative Party conference. Back to you, Nana.
Thank you, Tom. Right, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up. Nottingham attack victim Grace O'Malley Kumar is being awarded the George Medal for her bravery in trying to save her friend Barnaby Webber. All of that and much more after the latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. 1:30, the top story this lunchtime. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride has told his party conference there's no more pretending we can spend money we don't have. The Conservatives are promising a £5,000 first job bonus to help young people buy their first home, funded by more than £40 billion in spending cuts. France's Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu has resigned just hours after unveiling his new cabinet. The shock move came less than a month after he took office amid fierce criticism from MPs over his largely unchanged lineup. Donald Trump is urging negotiators to move fast as peace talks begin to end the war in Gaza. Hamas has accepted parts of his 20-point plan, including freeing hostages, but rejected calls to disarm. Jaguar Land Rover is restarting production this week after a major cyber attack that cost the car maker around £50 million every week. Its Wolverhampton engine plant will be the first back online. Nearly 30 million UK smartphone owners could get £17 each if consumer group Which wins its case against chipmaker Qualcomm. They're accused of inflating iPhone and Samsung prices through unfair licensing fees. The trial in London is expected to last 5 weeks. In the Himalayas, 350 hikers have been rescued from blizzards near Everest's Tibetan slopes, but more than 200 remain trapped as extreme weather batters the region. Those are the headlines. I'll be back with you for a full roundup at 2.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Thank you, Sam. Good afternoon. Britain, after the break, police are set to be given new powers to restrict pro-Palestine protests after the Home Secretary admitted British Jews are justified in feeling let down by Labour. But is this an attack on fundamental freedoms? All of that and more to come. You're with Britain's News Channel. This is GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a stormy weekend, it's a more settled picture now, fine and dry for many areas, but at times it could still be wet and windy across the far northwest. High pressure is mostly dominating, particularly across the south, bringing us the fine, settled conditions, but notice some more isobars on the chart to the northwest, so often blustery here. Also more cloud and some wet weather, particularly across western Scotland. A fair amount of cloud across northern and western parts of England today, but across central areas, parts of the east and southeast, plenty of sunshine here. And it is going to be feeling warm in the sunshine, highs reaching around 20 to 21 degrees Celsius across the far southeast. Even across eastern Scotland, it should be fairly warm in the sunshine, temperatures reaching the low 20s here also. Now, through the course of the evening, it's still going to remain fairly blustery across coasts of Scotland. Still outbreaks of rain continuing across the very far north. It could be heavy here at times. A chance of coastal gales through the course of the night, particularly around western exposed coasts. Northern Ireland and northwest England could also see a fair amount of clouds start to push in from the west, fairly similar across Wales and parts of the southwest too. And this cloud could be thick enough to produce some light outbreaks of drizzle, particularly around any hilly areas. More cloud will continue to push in from the west, so it's going to be a fairly mild night. Any breaks in the cloud, particularly across the east, we could start to see some fog develop during the early hours of the morning, and further outbreaks of rain spreading into the far northwest, so quite a damp start for Scotland and Northern Ireland through the early hours of the morning. But as I say, it should be a mostly mild night, lows reaching around 11 to 12 degrees Celsius across many towns and cities. So a wet start once again across western parts of Scotland, also Northern Ireland. This band of rain will slowly push its way southwards, moving into the Scottish borders, northern parts of England, perhaps even northern parts of Wales through the course of the day. As it clears Northern Ireland and Scotland, turning brighter here, bar the odd shower. But elsewhere across central areas, parts of the southeast, more cloud around, so it's not going to be feeling quite as warm. Highs reaching around 18 degrees Celsius.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Drivers on the A92 Tay Road Bridge should be cautious due to high winds enforcing a 30 miles per hour speed limit and prohibiting double-decker buses. A disabled vehicle on the A14 westbound in Cambridgeshire between junctions 22 and 20 has caused lane closures. Congestion on the A43 northbound in Northamptonshire is causing 20-minute delays. The M5 northbound in South Gloucestershire has a traffic incident, leading to single-lane closures. And on the trains, cross-country services are halted through Gloucester. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. 37 minutes after 1 o'clock. Police are set to receive new powers to restrict repeated pro-Palestine protests after Sunday's demonstration in Trafalgar Square, which saw nearly 500 arrests. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood says large, repeated protests can leave communities feeling unsafe, and tougher rules will allow police to limit locations, numbers and times for demonstrations. So joining us now is the editor-at-large of the Tribune, Carl Hansen. Carl, is this reasonable, considering the fact that we've had week after week after week after week of pro-Palestine protests?
I don't think it is reasonable. I mean, the right to protest is a foundation of our democracy, and when a government starts to take away those rights, I think that's something that should worry us all. And I'm sure that maybe yourself and many of your viewers might disagree with me on the Palestine protests, but this law isn't only going to apply to those protests, it's going to remove the right for you, yourself and all of your viewers to protest about the things that they care about too. And yeah, it's a worrying situation.
But these protests, and let's consider the taxpayer, they cost us a fortune. And it's like we've had, I can't even list them. It's been over the last year and a half or so. There's been one pretty much every weekend, and at least maybe 2 or 3 elsewhere as well. And it's costing us, in terms of policing, a fortune. Totally unfair to the taxpayer and also totally unfair to the Jewish community who admit that who've already said they feel petrified by all of these protests because it then limits their right to actually go about their business. What about their rights?
Well, on the point about the cost, I would say that's the price of living in a democracy. And if the government wants to end the Palestine protests, then the simplest way to do that would be to do what the majority of public opinion is demanding and stop arming and supporting Israel. It's as simple as that. It's the government that's choosing to continue to provide that support and causing the protests and the bill for the policing.
What makes you think that that's what the majority of the British public want? I mean, that might be your point of view. Just because people are prepared to go out and protest doesn't necessarily mean they represent the majority. Often there is a silent majority. And the other consideration is if there's a community who are unable to go about their business every week, what about their freedoms? Surely you'd be fighting for their freedoms.
Well, it's not my opinion. It's fact. Opinion poll after opinion poll after opinion poll shows the majorities.
Which one, sorry? Specifically, you know, it's fair enough. You said it's fact. Which opinion poll shows that the majority of people are on the side of pro-Palestine in this country?
YouGov, Ipsos Mori, Survation.
What are the numbers? I'm going to have a look.
Anyone watching at home can do a quick Google and see that.
Well, you might be. What specifically? Because I'm looking now. Savanta, and you're saying that supporting pro-Palestine protest.
No, I'm saying that the majority of public opinion opposes the war in Gaza, wants Britain to stop arming Israel and take measures to hold it to account. So the majority of public opinion is in support of the causes that protesters are protesting about.
I don't. I think you've put lots of things in there, because some of the things I'd support, some of the things I wouldn't support. And I think if you ask each one of those separate bits to different people or to the majority, I don't think you'd get all of them saying yes to everything. I'm not quite sure of that. But one thing I do know is that what about the right of the people to walk the streets freely, the right of Jewish people? Because whilst these protests are going ahead, we know that there are some elements which mean that Jewish people are afraid. And I'm sick and tired of people saying, oh, but some of my Jewish friends are on the protest. Maybe, but the majority of Jewish people, and I can say that for sure, are not prepared to go through the streets when these protests are happening, because you don't know which element of the pro-Palestine protests you will encounter. And as we well know, there have been some anti-Semitic elements of that protest as well. So what about the rights of Jewish people to, if every week maybe it's their street, they can't go down it because there's a protest?
Well, it's nonsense to say people can't go down because the protests are
they won't go down.
Not anti-Semitic. I mean, people might feel like that, but it's completely irrational.
Have you not seen?
You can't take away people's rights.
You've just done. Well, that's what you'd be doing if you continuously allowed repeated protests on the streets, which mean that people who feel that their rights have been taken away to go around the streets, because in those protests we've seen police who have told Jewish people don't go around that way or don't be visibly Jewish. I wouldn't advise you to do that, and then moving the Jewish people away because they're concerned for their safety. So whilst I hear you, yes, it's a fundamental right that people should be able to protest, what about the rights of people like the Jewish people to go about their business on a daily basis and being able to go where those protests are?
But again, it's just complete nonsense. There are large Jewish blocks on every one of those marches. The marches are not anti-Semitic. Jewish people are safe to join them, to walk around them, do whatever they like. And if people have an irrational fear that these marches are somehow a danger, the problem is that they've got a misinformed, irrational belief that's making them scared. And, you know, that's unfortunate, but that is not a reason to take away fundamental political rights from the entire population. And one more point I would like to make. It's
not the entire population, though, is it? It's a population that are feeling intimidated by weekly protests against the war in Gaza, but also those protests have some very anti-Semitic elements in it. And I'm not going to allow you to get away with saying that's not true. There were. It's not nonsense. We've seen from the river to the sea, we've seen people holding ISIS placards, we've seen people holding anti-Jewish messages, we've seen people, you know, doing, you know, supporting all sorts of things that are anti-Jewish at these protests, which are anti-Semitic. So, of course, Jewish people will be afraid to go out. They can't be sure that they're going to come to find the nice element of the protest. So how can it be allowed to carry on every single week?
Well, again, I just have to say that your characterisation of the protests is completely wrong. You should go out and see them yourself, and I think that will correct your view. And
No, I have. I have.
What I'd like to make is that, so GB News, and I'm sure many of your viewers would have supported the recent anti-immigration protests that we saw in London. Personally, I don't like those protests. I wouldn't join them. But I think that you have the right to hold them and to go on them, even though I'm sure some people feel intimidated by those protests. Like, this is part and parcel of living in a democracy. And if you're taking away these basic political rights from people who want to march for Palestine, then you're taking them away from the entire population to protest about the things that are important to them as well. This isn't just about pro-Palestine. This is about fundamental political freedoms for all of us, and that's why everybody should be worried.
Well, I would agree that people should have a right to protest, but there is a limit, and there is within reason. And at that point where you are, where it means that other people are afraid to walk the streets in that protest, then we have to draw the line over repeated every day or every weekend protest, which also costs the taxpayer a fortune. Carl Hansen, thank you very much. He's the editor-at-large of the Tribune. Thank you. Right, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. We'll be bringing you more reaction to the news that Nottingham attack victim Grace O'Malley-Kumar has been awarded the George Medal for courageously trying to save her friend Barnaby Webber. But right now, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here are the forecasts.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
It's a bit of a mixed picture across the Mediterranean over the next couple of days. Plenty of showers around for the Canaries as we head through Tuesday afternoon. Perhaps some fairly brisk winds too. But for much of Spain, Portugal, southern parts of France and Italy, there'll be plenty of sunny spells on offer. However, for the Balkans, a lot of wet weather around, perhaps even some snow over the mountains. So definitely feeling a little bit cooler here with some brisk winds too. There is going to be more sunshine on offer as we head through the rest of the week, and temperatures quite widely into the 20s for most of us.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Good afternoon, Britain. After the break, we'll be reacting to the news that much-loved author Dame Jilly Cooper has sadly passed away at the age of 88. All of that and more. You're with GB News. We are Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Two guests we're very happy to see all the time, Patrick Christie's and Emily Carver, husband and wife, and their new little product, little baby George. Peter Alexander.
Close enough. Close enough. We won't quibble about the order. Yeah, this is baby George.
Congratulations, the two of you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. And what sort of birth was it, Emily?
The traditional way.
Was it easy?
I was induced a little bit early because they were worried that maybe he was measuring a little small, so they wanted to get him out, which did mean that it was very, very painful indeed. But I did finally get an epidural towards the end.
How much did you weigh? Sorry, I was going to say.
6.5 pounds.
Yeah,
so a little one.
Honestly, I was in awe of Emily. She basically did all of it on 2 paracetamol until right at the end. Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah, but that wasn't because I wanted to. That's because the epidural took a while to arrive.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, to watch and just to be there, really. I felt very sorry for you, obviously, but, you know, it was...
But the staff were amazing. I had 3 midwives all sort of cheering me on. Push, push, push. And you? And of course him.
I was just,
and my mother.
I was supervising.
You were supervising.
I was supervising.
So, how have you two taken to being parents? I mean, there you were leading this life, you know, and then little George comes along. Have you taken to it easily, or have you surprised yourselves, or?
I think we've been quite natural with it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's still.
I mean, as natural as you can be. I mean, not to toot our own horns, but I think it's going pretty well.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, tributes are pouring in at best-selling novelist Dame Jilly Cooper passed away, aged 88. Her children, Felix and Emily, say her death came as a complete shock as the much-loved Yorkshire author passed away following a fall. Well, joining me now is GB News entertainment editor Alex Davies. So, as I understand it, a lot of tributes are now coming in for Jilly.
From all areas of the showbiz world, and the Queen. Obviously, the Queen had quite a long-standing friendship with Jilly Cooper, famous for the Berkshire Chronicles, Riders, Rivals. Millions and millions of books she sold in this country, and probably one of our most famous authors, you know. The Queen said she was very saddened and that she was sending her thoughts with the family, and she signed it off in a bit of a humorous fashion, said, "May her hereafter be filled with impossibly handsome men and devoted dogs." Most people TV fans at the moment will probably know her work best for Rivals, which is currently streaming on Disney, and a lot of the cast have done their tributes as well. There's currently filming its second series at the moment, and they were told during filming, Emily Atack, who did I'm a Celebrity and is quite a famous face, she said she couldn't believe she was writing this when she wrote her tribute. She plays Sarah Stratton in the series. She said to be taken into your world was the hugest honour and a once-in-a-lifetime privilege. And she signed off with a message to Jilly Cooper's family saying that she hopes that they're comforted by knowing and seeing how adored she was. Like I say, they literally learned it while filming. Rufus Jones, who plays Paul Stratton in the series, he said they were almost exactly halfway through filming series 2 and heard about the news of an extraordinary woman. He branded her hilarious, twinkingly outrageous and kind. We loved being in her company. She just seemed like... And the really, really tragic thing about this is at 88 she died, but she was still the life of the party. She was hosting these big parties in the Cotswolds. She was joining the Queen at social events, and she died following a fall, which has understandably left her entire family, as they say, shocked and saddened.
Yeah, I mean, especially as people get older, falls are one of the biggest killers, actually.
Yeah.
So it is just so concerning, because she was such a wonderful, cheerful soul. If you didn't know her, but you just look at her, you can see that she exuded real energy and positivity and happiness and joy.
Well, we've been writing about this on gbnews.com, and every photo that I've seen of her,
smiling.
She's smiling.
Big smile.
And do you know what? There's so many photos of her, not just at like red carpet events, but at social events, in groups with these fellow stars and these big names.
Yeah.
The centre of attention, the big smiles on their face. Everybody from all walks of life have done tributes, from Rishi Sunak to Helen Lederer to Giles Brandreth to, like I said, the cast of Rivals. She's an author who truly touched generations upon generations of fiction fans and TV fans.
And there are very few people who can transcend all those different eras and decades and still be relevant. And she clearly was.
And receive a damehood. She was made a dame last year by King Charles, sold over 11 million copies of her books. So, you know, a truly decorated career. And it is tragic circumstances in the way that she's passed. But I mean, we would mourn whenever somebody like this dies, and it's just a really sad time for her family, I think.
Yeah, well, listen, Alex, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for that. We'll carry on following the story. That's Alex Davies. He's GB News' entertainment editor, bringing you the news that, sadly, Jilly Cooper has died. Author and brilliant woman, basically all-round good egg, 88. She died from a fall. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. Do not go anywhere. We'll be heading back to the Conservative Party conference in Manchester as they seek to reverse their tanking poll numbers. But first, let's take a look at the weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a stormy weekend, it's a more settled picture now, fine and dry for many areas, but at times it could still be wet and windy across the far northwest. High pressure is mostly dominating, particularly across the south, bringing us the fine, settled conditions. But notice more isobars on the chart to the northwest, so often blustery here. Also more cloud and some wet weather, particularly across western Scotland. A fair amount of cloud across northern and western parts of England today, but across central areas, parts of the east and southeast, plenty of sunshine here. And it is going to be feeling warm in the sunshine, highs reaching around 20 to 21 degrees Celsius across the far southeast. Even across eastern Scotland it should be fairly warm in the sunshine, temperatures reaching the low 20s here also. Now, through the course of the evening, it's still going to remain fairly blustery across coasts of Scotland. Still outbreaks of rain continuing across the very far north. It could be heavy here at times. A chance of coastal gales through the course of the night, particularly around western exposed coasts. Northern Ireland and northwest England could also see a fair amount of clouds start to push in from the west, fairly similar across Wales and parts of the southwest too. And this cloud could be thick enough to produce some light outbreaks of drizzle, particularly around any hilly areas. More cloud will continue to push in from the west, so it's going to be a fairly mild night. Any breaks in the cloud, particularly across the east, we could start to see some fog develop during the early hours of the morning, and further outbreaks of rain spreading into the far northwest, so quite a damp start for Scotland and Northern Ireland through the early hours of the morning. But as I say, it should be a mostly mild night, lows reaching around 11 to 12 degrees Celsius across many towns and cities. So a wet start once again across western parts of Scotland, also Northern Ireland. This band of rain will slowly push its way southwards, moving into the Scottish borders, northern parts of England, perhaps even northern parts of Wales through the course of the day. As it clears Northern Ireland and Scotland, turning brighter here, bar the odd shower. But elsewhere across central areas, parts of the southeast, more cloud around, so it's not going to be feeling quite as warm. Highs reaching around 18 degrees Celsius.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 2 o'clock. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua, and of course, throughout the show, Tom Harwood will be joining me at the Conservative Party conference in Manchester. Well, the Conservatives, they're pledging to slash billions in welfare spending as they look to use their conference to paint themselves as a fiscally responsible party. But will this be enough to boost their tanking poll numbers? Gary Neville sparks fury by tearing down a Union flag from one of his Manchester building sites as he urges people to rethink what patriotism is.
The division that's being created is absolutely disgusting. Mainly created by angry, middle-aged white men who know exactly what they're doing.
Former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is back in the news after admitting that he got carried away in his pursuit of net zero. Is it true he went too fast too soon? And it's been announced that Nottingham attack victim Grace Omari-Kumar will be posthumously awarded the George Medal for her astonishing courage in giving her life to try and protect her friend Barnaby Webber. So we went too far, too fast with net zero. Boris, it's a disaster. Net zero is an absolute joke. That's my view. I cannot see... I was talking about this with my fiancée the other day, and I was saying, how are you going to work out whether you've got zero, so you've balanced off the carbon? Because tomorrow it might be +1. The next day, if you go and measure it over there, it'll be this and over there. I don't think that we humans have the capacity to actually change the whole environment of this planet. I think it's utter madness if we think we do, considering what we put into the environment is fractional, it's minimal as to what the planet itself emits. But what do you think? gbnews.com/your say. Did Boris go too far, too fast with net zero? Or is it a ridiculous supposition? Or is it something that you believe in heavily? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Post your comments. But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Sam Francis.
Nana, thank you very much, and good afternoon to you. Just after 2 o'clock, the Conservatives are promising a £5,000 boost for first-time buyers, calling it a first job bonus, they say, to help young people onto the property ladder. Earlier, Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride unveiled that plan at the party's conference in Manchester, saying it will be funded by almost £50 billion in cuts. Welfare, the civil service and foreign aid are all in the firing line as the Tories try to prove they're tougher on spending than Labour. Well, it comes almost a year since Kemi Badenoch took over as Tory leader and just weeks before Labour's budget. Here's what Mel Stride had to say a short time ago.
No more pretending we can keep spending money we simply do not have. It falls to us, as today's Conservatives, to do the responsible thing. That's the right thing for our country, and it's also the right thing for the next generation. So to younger people, I say, we will get debt off your back. We can and we will.
That comes as the Labour government have announced a major shake-up to the home buying system that could make moving house cheaper, faster and less stressful, let's hope. The government says its proposal could shave a month off the process and save buyers around £700 on average. Plans include forcing sellers and agents to provide more upfront information and introducing binding contracts earlier to stop chains collapsing. Housing Secretary Steve Reed says it's about turning a simple dream into a simple reality, with a full roadmap expected in the new year. France has been plunged into fresh political turmoil today after the Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu quit less than a day after unveiling his new cabinet. He said conditions were not fulfilled for him to continue, blaming gridlock in Parliament. The shock move comes just 26 days after he took office, becoming France's fifth Prime Minister in under 2 years. It leaves President Emmanuel Macron facing mounting pressure to call early elections or risk another short-lived government. Donald Trump says peace talks between Israel and Hamas in Egypt have been very successful so far, urging negotiators to move fast. Hamas has agreed to parts of his 20-point US plan, including freeing hostages, but rejected calls to disarm. Meanwhile, Israeli airstrikes have continued overnight, despite the US president calling for an immediate halt, with at least 65 more people confirmed killed in just the past 24 hours. Both sides are sending top delegations to Cairo for what could be the most crucial negotiations since the war began nearly 2 years ago. Here, Jaguar Land Rover is restarting production after a major cyber attack forced the car maker to shut down its UK factories for more than a month. The first site to reopen will be JLR's engine plant in Wolverhampton. The hack is thought to have cost the company around £50 million a week. The government has pledged a £1.5 billion loan guarantee to help suppliers hit by the shutdown. JLR says its recovery programme is now firmly underway. Nearly 30 million people across the UK who bought an Apple or Samsung device could get £17 each if a landmark lawsuit against tech giant Qualcomm succeeds. Consumer group Which is taking the chip maker to court in London, accusing it of inflating prices and abusing its market powers. The 5-week trial will determine whether Qualcomm's practices did push up smartphone costs for consumers. If Which wins, it would mean £480 million in payouts across the UK. Qualcomm, though, denies any wrongdoing. The latest Gallantry Awards, which honour extraordinary acts of bravery, have recognised 20 people, including Nottingham student Grace O'Malley Kumar, for her exceptional courage in the face of extreme danger. The 19-year-old medical student was killed in 2023 while trying to protect her friend Barnaby Webber during the Nottingham attacks. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer says her legacy will leave a lasting impact and a powerful example of heroism. Other recipients include 2 police officers who stopped a man from falling from a bridge. Grace's family have received that medal today in her honour. And the Queen has led tributes to author Dame Jilly Cooper, calling her a legend and a wonderfully witty friend after her sudden death at the weekend, aged 88. The writer of some steamy bestsellers died on Sunday after a fall, with her family saying it came as a complete shock. Queen Camilla joked she hoped Jilly's hereafter would be filled with impossibly handsome men and devoted dogs. A public Thanksgiving service will be held at Southwark Cathedral in the coming months. Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back with you in half an hour. Next, though, let's take a look at the markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
The pound will buy you $1.3419 and €1.1507. The price of gold is £2,934, 1 pence per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 9,499 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
It's It's fast approaching 7 or 8 minutes, even 9 minutes after 2 o'clock, and it's day 2 of the Conservative Party conference, and the Shadow Chancellor addressed party members earlier this morning. In his speech, Mel Stride urged Conservatives to hold their nerve, despite stagnant and terrible polling numbers. And he pledged that a future Conservative government would scrap business rates for high street shops and pubs. In the meantime, the party has vowed to ban foreign nationals from claiming benefits, a move aimed at curbing the rising support for Reform UK. Well, let's cross live to the Conservative Party conference. As GBNews Deputy Political Editor and GBNews' political correspondent, Olivia, join me now. So what more has been happening there, Tom?
Yes, well, Nana, today is very much economy day at the Conservative Party conference. They want to be talking about all the spending that they will cut in the face of what Rachel Reeves will probably do next month, which is raise taxes. But of course, Olivia Utley is with me now, and clearly the Conservatives have just had a lot to say at this party conference. I suppose the question is anyone listening?
Well, absolutely, Tom. The Conservatives have been on a policy blitz over the last couple of days, and this is set to continue.
Now, to come clean, we had a little chat before we had this chat on air, and we were like, what should we be talking about? What is the big thing that cuts through on this conference? And ultimately, we both kept coming to this conclusion. Is anyone in the country, is anyone out there actually willing to give the Conservative Party a hearing?
And this is the problem for the Conservatives. They're on this policy blitz. We've got Mel Stride out today talking about all of these cuts that he wants to make. They are trying to position themselves as the party of sound money. And there is an argument that there is a gap in the market for that. We know that Rachel Reeves is spending. We know that in the budget next month she is likely to raise taxes, something that she promised she wasn't going to do at the last election. We know that actually Reform, although they are very, very tough on immigration, they're not a kind of Thatcherite party. There's nothing economically liberal about the Reform Party. If anything, actually, they're talking about more spending. Even their immigration policies are quite high spend. Give £2,500 to any immigrant who is willing to deport themselves. So what the Conservatives are now trying to pitch themselves as is the only party which can bring down public spending, bring down the national debt, something which isn't talked about that often, but is really, really important. The proportion of GDP that we are now spending on national debt is equal to at least the welfare budget and I think the defence budget combined. So the Conservative Party is trying to pitch themselves as this party of sound money. We're going to be hearing so much about that over the next few days, but there doesn't seem to be that much of an appetite in the country for it. Perhaps this is agreed to be so far a good party conference for the Conservatives, and perhaps we might see their poll position rise by maybe a couple of points in the next few days. But will it really have that kind of cut through that they need to push against that tidal wave of that turquoise tidal wave of reform? No one seems to be really listening. What they're hoping is this is going to be the long game. They sow those seeds now, and over the next 3.5-4 years they continue to grow. Most Conservatives, I've said today, are at pains to point out there isn't an election around the corner.
Well, I suppose that's the big difficulty. Over the course of the last 12 months, we've seen 3 different parties be at number 1 in the opinion polls. It's actually remarkable to think about. This time last year, the Tories were vying for first place in the polls, and just the most enormous change, this sea change, has taken place in our politics over the last 12 months. I mean, it could be another 4 years until the next general election. What an extraordinary amount that could happen between now and then.
Well, exactly, and I think this is something which is giving Conservatives heart. We're seeing a very, very different kind of politics in general. It's the kind of politics which has characterised the last, 2-3 decades in the UK. We saw, 3 terms of a Tony Blair, Gordon Brown Labour government. Before that, 3 terms of a Thatcher government. Then 3 stable terms of Conservatives. And then we saw this huge swing to the Conservatives in 2019, enormous supermajority. And then in the next election, a huge swing towards Labour. And just over a year after that huge swing, that huge supermajority last year, the Labour Party is already in some polls in, at least second place, sometimes even in third place in the polls. So things can change really quickly in a way that they couldn't sort of 10, 15 years ago. And that is something that Kemi Badenoch and her party are hoping to capitalise on. There's been a bit of a vacuum left in politics over the last year, and there is no doubt that reform has filled it. But what the Tories are hoping is that with kind of 3.5-4 years out till a general election, there is chance for the Reform Party to kind of implode, and In the meantime, the Conservatives have been busying away behind the scenes. What they hope they're doing is building sort of strong, stable policies, if you remember that slogan from 2017, Theresa May, ready for the next general election.
And yet, if you look at countries across Europe where there's been little to no growth since the financial crisis, look at France, that's just lost another Prime Minister today. They've been through, what, 4 or 5 Prime Ministers in the last couple of years? Italy went through, over the course of the last 15 years, I don't know how many Prime Ministers. I mean, probably a dozen of the people, most of whom we couldn't name. Across this continent, we are seeing perhaps the political instability that comes from a world where politicians can no longer offer goodies like tax cuts or extra spending for free. Everything comes at a cost because our economies are just not growing.
And one problem which the Conservatives, I think, will have to be talking about over the next few years is exactly that, this idea that people have got used to getting stuff free from the state. People are all the polling shows, kind of addicted to getting stuff free. And the Conservatives are trying to pitch themselves as the party which will not abide by that any longer, the party which will make hard work pay again, etc., etc. But that message is really, really hard to push through to the public. And it's a really tricky position, particularly to be in for a party so far behind in the polls. To try and sell yourself as the party which is going to stop giving free things away to people, it's a pretty hard sell for the Tories.
Absolutely. But, as you say, a niche in politics. We'll have to watch this space. Olivia Utley, thank you very much indeed. Back to you, Nana, in London.
Thank you very much, Tom Harwood. Right, well, to discuss the pledges that they want to ban foreign citizens from claiming benefits, I'm joined by human rights lawyer Shoaib Khan. Shoaib, they're saying that. It sounds like an interesting thing, but can they actually do that? Haven't they signed up for the Convention of Human Rights, and won't they be challenging the ECHR and all the other things if they're saying that foreign citizens won't be able to claim any benefits? What if a foreign citizen comes here, has been here for a while, is still deemed as a foreign citizen, and then tries to claim benefits? Can they actually do that?
Hi. No, I don't think they can. And I think, obviously, human rights, ECHR is a separate thing, which, of course, will have an effect. We can talk about that. But I think just generally, is that what they're saying, if a foreign national comes here, he's, like you said, been here for ages. So let's just look at some of the categories they're talking about. So first, the European nationals. Many European nationals don't, ever apply for British citizenship. So they might have been here for decades, whole European families. Children might be on benefits, parents are on benefits, all of them. They've been working here, paying taxes, working just like the rest of us. So is that what we're saying? After working here for 20, 30 years, if at some point they're unemployed and then they have to claim job seekers allowance, or they become disabled, or when they're retired. So is that what we're saying? We won't give them any benefits? I just don't understand. But they are technically foreign nationals because they don't have British passports. Another thing, the Ukrainian families. So are we saying in future, something similar to the Ukrainian incident, the invasion happens, so we might bring people over, but then what? We'll make them homeless? We won't give them social housing? We won't allow them to claim any benefits? If they're destitute, we'll bring the refugees over, but then put them on the streets. So none of this makes any sense. I just don't understand what they're saying. But obviously, we know why they're doing it and what they're saying, just to counter reform. That's what reform suggested. But I think the main difference is that reform have never been in power. They don't really know what they're talking about, whereas the Tories should really know. Which are the categories of people they're saying? All foreigners always, unless you're a British national, a British passport, if you're destitute and homeless, we will leave you like that. I just don't think that's possible.
Well, I think Reform was saying, and I'm not defending them, but I think they were saying that if you've been here for a while, you'd have to be earning a certain amount of money and prove that you can support the people who you've brought with you. I sort of think that's reasonable, because in most countries, I don't know any other country where you'd be able to go there, bring as many dependents as you want, and then they be able to claim benefits. It does get a bit... It is a mess. We've all got to admit that it is a bit of a mess and we need to fix it. But if they're going to ban foreign citizens, the Conservatives, from claiming benefits altogether, I'm just not sure that is credible and reasonable. And from what you said, as I understand it, could somebody who, say, has been here for 30 years and then, as you say, maybe becomes sick or disabled, then needs to claim benefits, and if the Tories are in power, then they refuse, could they then take this to a court of law?
They could take it to a court of law. Like I said, I think the first thing is morally, from a humanitarian perspective, I think that's ridiculous anyway. But of course, I think, and hopefully they should be able to, and they should win there if they've been paying, and we're one of the highest, taxed countries in the world. If someone's been working for 30, 40 years here, paying taxes at those huge, exorbitant, extortionate rates, And then finally, if, a few decades later, they need something, a few £100 a month, and we say, well, we don't care. Either go back, to the country you came from 30 years ago, or just go live on the street.
What if they said...
I think that's awful.
Well, what if they said, OK, so if you've been here for 10 years, you should claim your citizenship, otherwise, or 5 years, or whatever the time period is, otherwise, from then on, you can't claim benefits if you're not a citizen. So they get a chance to become nationalised, to become a citizen. If they choose otherwise, then they are turning down the opportunity for the state to look after them should that need arise.
Well, there's lots of things. I mean, firstly, many countries don't allow dual nationals. So that's the thing. If the country you come from, you might have property there, you might have some other things there. You don't want to completely cut off your ties. Obviously, some people are lucky they can retain both nationalities. Whereas for some people, once they give that up, they lose all their rights from that country. They just might not be, for whatever reason, willing to do that, firstly. Secondly, nationality, the whole process of nationality, applying for settlement, indefinitely to remain, then nationality, then the British passport, that costs thousands of pounds. Many people just don't have that sort of money spare. And especially if you're applying for a whole family. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 per person. If it's a family of 6, you need 24,000 just to apply for that. So the point is, it's not really an option for many people that might want to do it. They just can't do that. So there's all sorts of reasons people can't do that.
But the citizenship has to have some value, and you have to be paying something if you want to be a citizen. So perhaps there is a possibility that if you didn't, because OK, it might cost thousands, but it would save you thousands in the long run if you needed to claim benefits. So the bottom line is it's up to the individual to decide whether it's important enough for them to drop whatever citizenship they have in another country and become a citizen of this country and then be able to access the benefits. Is that a fair choice for someone?
I don't know, because, again, the point is, at the time when you're applying for it, do you have £24,000? I don't think that's really, for a family of 6. The point is, I don't think that's necessarily a decision. You have the money or you don't. I mean, what are we expecting? If you have a house, sell the house, apply, get your passport, though, so that then you become destitute. And at least with a British passport, then you'll get benefits. I just don't see how that works.
Well, it wouldn't cost one person £24,000. It might cost their family, but one person, I think there has to be some value for being a citizen of this country, and you should be paying, if you've been here for a certain period of time, to apply for it. I don't think that's a problem. I think most countries do that anyway. And if you're serious about being here, you should hopefully have a certain amount of money so you can afford it, really.
No, but even other than that, I mean, I just think that, just that single passport, that one piece, shouldn't be our, just to live a normal, be treated as a human in this country. You need to have that passport. I think just, that just seems a bit immoral to me. I just don't understand the point of that. Fine, if you want to be in this country, yes, if you really want to call yourself British, but the point is, if you're contributing, you've been working here, the point is, what is the problem? You've been in the NHS, it's a nurse, she came here 30 years ago, she's been working, she's got her kids, they've all gone to university, now she's unwell. She's been paying taxes all her life. She's been running the NHS for us, looking after our sick people. Now she needs help. But we say, oh, unless you have this small booklet and you pay thousands of pounds for it, we won't help you. I just don't see what the connection between the two. If generally you're saying, you have to contribute to the economy first, OK, that's something I could talk about. Fine, if you've been contributing. But what difference does it make whether you got a passport or not? That I just don't...
Listen, Shab, I think there's a dilemma there that people, if you want to become part of this country and you want to be a citizen, then you should reach a certain level of criteria. But maybe the Tories need to rethink the plans and see whether that would actually be effective and whether it would actually work. Shab Khan, thank you very much for your thoughts. He's a human rights lawyer. What do you think? Should the Tories do that? Does that sound realistic to you? We'll stay with us, though. Plenty more still to come. Even your chance to get your hands on our biggest Great British giveaway ever to date. It's worth up to £104,000. Here are the details you need to make it all yours.
You're not going to want to miss our greatest Great British giveaway so far. You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. With thanks to Marquis Leisure, this brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. And remember, if you can dream it, you can drive it away. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, 23 minutes after 2 o'clock. Lots more coming up on today's show. Gary Neville sparks fury by tearing down a Union flag from one of his Manchester building sites as he urges people to rethink what patriotism is.
The division that's being created is absolutely disgusting. Mainly created by angry, middle-aged white men who know exactly what they're doing.
So how divisive does he think those comments are? All of that and much more. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
afternoon, Britain, 27 minutes after 2 o'clock. Now, pundit and former Manchester United and England footballer Gary Neville has hit out following the terror attack in Manchester. He's received a lot of backlash for his diatribe about Britain's fastening St George's and Union Jack flags to lampposts. Let's have a listen.
All being turned on each other, and the division that's being created is absolutely disgusting. Mainly created by angry, middle-aged white men who know exactly what they're doing.
Yes, the very middle-aged white men who probably went and watched you play football. And every time you supported the England flag and the England outfit, and we've got plenty of images of him doing that. Well, joining me now is commentator and podcast host Sunil Sharma. Sunil, is this just a case of privileged white male talking absolute nonsense, denigrating others simply for being patriotic about their own country?
100%. You know, you said it there. Gary Neville, maybe he's forgotten his whole career has been built off middle-aged white men supporting him at Man United, supporting him for his country. That's how he made his millions. Maybe he's forgotten with all his new ventures he's doing now, but that's predominantly what put Gary Neville on this platform, and he seems to have completely forgotten that. He had no problem wearing the England shirt, waving the England flag when he represented England. Now he has a problem when other people do it. It is pure hypocrisy coming from him. And again, I don't think we should be surprised. This is a man in 2022, before the World Cup, had a lot of things to say about Qatar, heavily criticised the country, then decided to go to Qatar, take the millions from Qatar, and be a pundit during the World Cup. He has absolutely no morals or no understanding of what everyday people in Britain go through. He's so privileged and so out of touch with the realities of the United Kingdom that he thinks that he can somehow twist an attack that happened towards a Jewish synagogue and make it about white middle-aged men, make it about the Union Jack, make it about the St George's flag. It's crazy, and it's beyond belief that somehow he's been able to try and associate those two things, because it makes absolutely no sense.
Well, he seems to be conflating what I saw as an act of racist terrorism with people, white males, supporting, holding England flags and being patriotic. I'm not really sure how there's a connection. I'm with you on that. I just don't understand why these quite influential individuals who have literally made their success from being patriotic and being part of this country and representing this country actually then have the gall to denigrate anybody who dares do the same.
I think the problem with somebody like Gary Neville, maybe he doesn't watch GBNews enough. You know, you look at yourself and me, we're not white middle-aged men, and, you know, we're both proudly patriotic of the United Kingdom. And I think he's so out of touch with the realities of the United Kingdom anymore, maybe because he's become so privileged that the circles he swims about, the circles he's now in, he's lost any sort of compassionate idea for what the average white working person goes through, just general people, not white or whatever, like working class people. I think he's so out of touch. It doesn't matter that maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago he maybe was working class. I think now he's so out of touch with it. He thinks that these are the issues, or he thinks these are serious issues. Maybe he should spend more time actually talking to the fans at Old Trafford, talking to his old the supporters that go to games on a regular basis, actually talking to proper football fans, and I'm sure they will tell him what exactly they feel, because that's where he's made his money from. And I think he's very quickly alienating a lot of those people, and I think it's a real shame. This is somebody who was never necessarily the most talented footballer, but a lot of people appreciate him for the incredible hard work he did, his dedication to his country, to his flag, and I think he got a lot of respect for that throughout his career, but he seems to have forgotten all of that, and now he seems to be want to tarnish his own name, tarnish his own image, which I think is really really depressing.
I think you also make a very good point that people who are patriotic aren't just white males. There are plenty. It means that in his mind he's thinking that the British or English person is white, whereas that's not quite true, is it? I mean, I'm British, I'm black, I would support the flag. I've got a Union Jack dress. I'm very proud. I was born in Newcastle. I'm a Geordie. Yes, my parents, I have African heritage. That's where my parents are from. But I am ultimately an alien in Ghana because I don't really know their ways, their customs, their traditions. But I'm proud that I have this as my heritage. But I'm British. I like my ketchup, my fish and chips. Do you know what I mean? I'm a true Brit and I support the flag. And I would have supported England at a World Cup any day of the week. Does that make me one of those white males that he's talking about?
100%. You know, like myself, I always watch football games. Okay, I don't support the same team as Gary Neville, but like, you know, I'm always watching England play. Wear the England T-shirt. Is that now an issue? If I wear an England flag, am I the same as one of these white English males that he's associating with? And it's crazy that he even thinks like this. He played alongside many mixed race, many black players. His teammates were from all over the place, and for him to now sit there and make these comments, and what makes even worse is he would have played at Man United with so many international players who were, all of them would have been so patriotic about their specific countries, whether it's Argentina, Brazil, across Europe, and a lot of these football players are so patriotic about their country. You could argue for some of them they're even more patriotic for their home countries than they are for their club, and that's always a criticism sometimes we say to England players. And for him not to understand that the basic root of, if you are born in Britain, regardless of your skin color, you should be patriotic, you should care about your country, you should wave the flag, you should be. I think that the issue maybe he's conflating is, I think when we talk about nationalism in the UK, it's always associated as a bad thing. We talk about World War II and all this sort of stuff, but everyone should be a bit nationalistic. You should be proud of your roots in your country. And I think Gary Neville's really missed the point there, because I'm sure if we asked Gary Neville 10, maybe a bit longer, 15 years ago, when he was playing for England, I'm sure he would be one of the first people saying he's so proud to be representing his country.
Oh, he wouldn't dare to say what he's saying now. So I think he needs to have a think about his words before he posts such nonsense. I'm not surprised that British people and people from this country are looking at him thinking, what are you on about, Gary? But anyway, he seems to be Gary Lineker 2.0. Thank you very much, Sunil Sharma. Really good to talk to you. That is Sunil Sharma. He's a commentator and podcast host. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. It's been announced that Nottingham attack victim Grace O'Malley-Kumar will be posthumously awarded the George Medal for her astonishing courage in giving her life to try and protect her friend Barnaby Webber. All of that and much more after your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. 2:30, the top story this hour. The Conservatives say they will scrap business rates for high street shops and pubs if they win the next election. A £4 billion pledge unveiled by Shadow Chancellor Sir Mel Stride. He says it's part of a radical plan to rebuild the economy, while Labour's accused the Tories of making promises they can't pay for. Donald Trump is urging negotiators to move fast as peace talks begin in Egypt to end the Gaza war. Hamas has accepted parts of his 20-point plan, including freeing hostages, but rejected calls to disarm. Meanwhile, Israeli strikes overnight have continued. Greta Thunberg has been deported from Israel. She was detained alongside 170 other activists aboard an international aid flotilla. She's expected to arrive in Greece shortly. It comes as another 9 ships set sail, vowing to break Israel's blockade. Nottingham student Grace O'Malley-Kumar has been honoured with a Gallantry Award for exceptional courage after she was killed trying to protect her friend Barnaby Webber in the 2023 Nottingham attacks. And in the Himalayas, 350 hikers have been rescued from blizzards near Everest's Tibetan slopes. More than 200, though, remain trapped as extreme weather batters the region and floods hit neighbouring Nepal. And former England rugby captain Lewis Moody has revealed he's been diagnosed with motor neurone disease. The 47-year-old World Cup winner says he's focusing on his family and embracing every moment after learning the devastating news just 2 weeks ago. Those are the headlines for now. A full roundup at 3.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Thank you, Sam. Lots more coming up on today's show. Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson is back in the news after admitting he got carried away in his pursuit of net zero. Is it true that he went too fast too soon? All of that and much more. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a stormy weekend, it's a more settled picture now, fine and dry for many areas, but at times it could still be wet and windy across the far northwest. High pressure is mostly dominating, particularly across the south, bringing us the fine, settled conditions. But notice more isobars on the chart to the northwest, so often blustery here. Also more cloud and some wet weather, particularly across western Scotland. A fair amount of cloud across northern and western parts of England today, but across central areas, parts of the east and southeast, plenty of sunshine here. And it is going to be feeling warm in the sunshine, highs reaching around 20 to 21 degrees Celsius across the far southeast. Even across eastern Scotland, it should be fairly warm in the sunshine, temperatures reaching the low 20s here also. Now, through the course of the evening, it's still going to remain fairly blustery across coasts of Scotland. Still outbreaks of rain continuing across the very far north. It could be heavy here at times. A chance of coastal gales through the course of the night, particularly around western exposed coasts. Northern Ireland and northwest England could also see a fair amount of clouds start to push in from the west, fairly similar across Wales and parts of the southwest too. And this cloud could be thick enough to produce some light outbreaks of drizzle, particularly around any hilly areas. More cloud will continue to push in from the west, so it's going to be a fairly mild night. Any breaks in the cloud, particularly across the east, we could start to see some fog develop during the early hours of the morning, and further outbreaks of rain spreading into the far northwest, so quite a damp start for Scotland and Northern Ireland through the early hours of the morning. But as I say, it should be a mostly mild night, lows reaching around 11 to 12 degrees Celsius across many towns and cities. So a wet start once again across western parts of Scotland, also Northern Ireland. This band of rain will slowly push its way southwards, moving into the Scottish borders, northern parts of England, perhaps even northern parts of Wales through the course of the day. As it clears Northern Ireland and Scotland, turning brighter here, bar the odd shower. But elsewhere across central areas, parts of the southeast, more cloud around, so it's not going to be feeling quite as warm. Highs reaching around 18 degrees Celsius.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Road users should exercise caution on the A92 Tay Road Bridge due to high winds. A 30 mph speed limit is enforced, and the bridge is closed to double-decker buses. Signal failures have been reported on the A40 from Monmouth Dixton roundabout to the Gibraltar tunnels, impacting traffic. In Hampshire, the M3 westbound between junctions 4 and 4A is affected by a broken-down vehicle with 1 out of 4 lanes closed. Normal traffic conditions expected by 2:45 this afternoon. And on the trains, disruptions continue on the Elizabeth line between Gidea Park and Shenfield. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2:40. I'm Nana Akua. Now, Boris Johnson has admitted he moved far too fast on net zero during his time as Prime Minister, saying he got carried away with the idea that renewable energy could fully replace fossil fuels. Well, while the former Prime Minister remains a supporter of green policies, Johnson warned against scrapping net zero entirely, but argued that Labour's 2050 target for reaching carbon neutrality should be pushed back. Surprise, surprise. Perhaps he's realised that it is absolutely, completely impossible. Joining us now to discuss this is leader of the Climate Party, leader Ed Gemmell. Ed?
Hello.
So, even Boris Johnson is now admitting that his net zero targets are way too ambitious. 2050, he's the one that set the targets alongside Theresa May, and now he's saying that it was a bit too much.
Gutless, and it's politicking. I mean, I find it absolutely ridiculous. I mean, this idea that we're going to spend another 10 or 20 years investing in something which should be making us vast amounts of money is completely ridiculous. I mean, Philip Hammond at the time went out and warned that the potential investment needed into net zero to get to 2050 was bigger than some had been saying. And he put that cost out at something like £1 trillion or above over the entire period. But the vast, enormous industry, the clean industrial industry around the entire world is going to be worth nearly $15 trillion by 2030. Britain needs to get there first, take a big chunk of that, and put £1 trillion per year onto our economy every single year, and stop worrying about this silliness of who's going to be paying for it and how it's going to be done.
Well,
it's an investment.
No,
we need to do it now.
You can't just do that and say, stop worrying about who's going to pay for it. We're paying for it, yeah? Even Boris Johnson is admitting that they did it because they wanted electricity and bills to be cheaper, and it's not working out that way. We're going to be paying for it. We can't afford it. Our energy costs are through the roof, and all the components that we need to make ourselves supposedly carbon neutral come from China anyway. So we're not really self-sufficient at all, are we?
Right. In terms of our actual energy bills, which is only, of course, a small section of the entire issue in terms of getting to net zero. But anyway, our energy
relevant. It's a very relevant issue, though, for
it is relevant.
Normal person on the street.
Sure. No, I agree it's absolutely relevant. I'm saying it's not absolutely the main issue, although it's a very important one. I mean, only a couple of days ago, we saw the wholesale price of energy come down to below zero. So that's the energy that goes into us actually creating our electricity. And it went down to below zero because gas got knocked out of the equation completely because we produce so much wind and solar that it got down to below zero. That, though, doesn't go through to the consumer. Why? Because of the structure of it, it doesn't feed through to the consumer. And what the consumer is seeing is still a big hangover from the enormous increase in gas prices from the start of the Russian-Ukraine war. And if we continue to allow to peg our energy prices to the price of wholesale gas, that will stay the same in the future. I mean, the most recent price rises, where our bills have gone up just about 2% recently, there are 3 different reasons why those bills have gone up. And one of them is paying for the Warm Homes discount scheme that came in, so nothing to do with the cost of renewables or anything else. One is the daily standing charge, which is a charge to run the network for gas, to upgrade it and look after it. And then there was only one aspect, which was to do with renewables, which is the balancing cost of the grid. But you could actually say that that's a cost because we didn't invest enough over the last 20 or 30 years to get a grid that's actually fit for what we need it to do today. We should have been doing something very different. And I think it's quite rich from Boris Johnson, actually, talking about the fact that, I mean, at the time he was more optimistic and now he isn't. If he had done some of the things he talked about doing, then he backed down because of opposition from Conservative MPs. So, for instance, removing the planning restrictions on onshore wind, we would have gone a lot further and a lot faster.
No, Ed, it's all a nice idea. But as you know, we subsidise wind farms to stop them from producing electricity. We switch them off. We pay hundreds of millions even towards them. So I think the last time I looked, it was 400 million to keep them switched off. Or maybe it was 700 million. Ed, I'm afraid that Boris has come to the realisation, which you need to come to, that this 2050 target is unachievable. Ed Gemmell, I have to leave it there, only for time reasons, but I look forward to speaking to you very shortly. That is Ed Gemmell. He is the leader for the Climate Party. Those are his thoughts. What do you think? This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. It's been announced that the Nottingham attack victim, Grace Omani-Kumar, will be posthumously awarded the George Medal for her astonishing courage in giving her life to try and protect her friend Barnaby Webber. Stay with me for that. But if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast of some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's a bit of a mixed picture across the Mediterranean over the next couple of days. Plenty of showers around for the Canaries as we head through Tuesday afternoon. Perhaps some fairly brisk winds too. But for much of Spain, Portugal, southern parts of France and Italy, there'll be plenty of sunny spells on offer. However, for the Balkans, a lot of wet weather around, perhaps even some snow over the mountains. So definitely feeling a little bit cooler here with some brisk winds too. There is going to be more sunshine on offer as we head through the rest of the week, and temperatures quite widely into the 20s for most of us.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Grace O'Malley-Kumar, who was stabbed to death in the Nottingham attacks whilst trying to protect her friend, has been posthumously awarded the George Medal for her exceptional courage in the face of extreme danger. Well, joining us now is GB News' presenter, Cameron Walker. Cameron, so what can you tell us?
Well, Nana, this is an incredibly significant honour for Grace. It is the second highest civilian honour for bravery that this country can bestow. It is likely to be awarded personally by King Charles himself at Buckingham Palace, although we don't have a date for that yet. Let's just cast our minds back to Nottingham in June 2023 when Grace, alongside her friend Barnaby, were walking home and Barnaby was attacked by somebody with a hunting knife. Grace could have run away. She didn't. She tried to protect her friend and ultimately paid the ultimate price for that. And this is what her father, Sanjoy, told me earlier.
Anyone who's awarded anything posthumously has gone through enormous grief and suffering. Any family, any serviceman who has been awarded this medal, it is heartbreaking and bittersweet for them. So my heart goes out to all of those families. People think it is of comfort, but it's of little comfort to us as a family. But the comfort that is there is that Grace will always be remembered as someone who I think young people should be like. She was dutiful in her friendships. She was dutiful to her country, her community, her county. She represented. She was a patriot. And that's what everyone should be.
Oh, very tragic news. Thank you very much to Cameron Walker for that, and also Grace Mani Kumar, who was awarded posthumously. Well, this is GB News. Joining us now, Martin Daubney. He's going to be doing his show next. Martin, what have you got for us?
Superb show today, Nana. Beautiful as ever. Today, we've got Andrew Rosendale, his favourite to defect to Reform UK. We'll be speaking to him live in a few moments' time, direct from the Tory party conference. Also on the show today, former Australian PM Tony Abbott, the gold standard in stopping the boats. Nobody seems to have done it in Britain. Why not? Have they lost their mettle? Plus, of course, we'll have Michael Gove at 4 p.m. to get more from him. But first, here's your latest weather forecast.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head through this evening, spells of rain across the northwest are set to continue, but elsewhere it should be mostly dry, but we're likely to see more cloud pushing from the west, unlike what we did last night, where it was a fairly bright start, and it's been a fairly bright end to the day, and it's all thanks to high pressure situated to the south. Notice more isobars on the chart to the northwest, though, so still fairly blustery here. Outbreaks of rain moving their way northwards into the Northern Isle through the course of the night, and then eventually lighter outbreaks of rain starting to push into Scotland, Northern Ireland through the early hours of the morning, and elsewhere it should remain mostly dry. Some quite thick cloud pushing into parts of Wales, southwest England. This could produce the odd light patch of drizzle across hilly areas, and with plenty of cloud around, it's going to be a mostly mild night. Many towns and cities dropping to around 11 to 13 degrees Celsius. So it is going to be a wet start, particularly across Scotland, Northern Ireland, still fairly blustery around exposed coast, but these winds will ease through the course of the day. Quite a damp start across Northern Ireland through into the Scottish borders, and still plenty of cloud across northern parts of England. This cloud quite thick at times across Wales, southwest England, so that could lead to quite a gloomy start, some drizzle across hills, and elsewhere we'll see patchy clouds, some brighter spells, chance of mist and fog where we saw any prolonged clear skies overnight. Now, outbreaks of rain will eventually start to push into northern parts of England and Wales, quite persistent at times, though it should be mostly light. Elsewhere across England and Wales, it will likely be a cloudier afternoon, some brighter spells in between, but with more cloud around, it's not going to get quite as warm. Turning much brighter across Scotland, Northern Ireland later into the day, highs reaching around 17 to 18 degrees Celsius, so more average for the time of year. Through the course of the evening, further spells of rain drifting their way southwards into England and Wales. Much clearer skies across Northern Ireland and Scotland, so turning chilly here. We'll likely see some patchy frost through the early hours of the morning. Still plenty of cloud around for the rest of the week, but it should be mostly dry with sunny spells and temperatures remaining around average.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
The cost of